So we opened it up a little early to let everybody kind of make their way in. One thing I always like to ask is, 'cause it's always fun for us to see where you're calling in from. I'm typically out of Washington, D.C., but I'm actually in a hotel in Las Vegas at a MSP industry event. So if you could put it in the chat and make sure you're hitting it to everyone so that we can see where you're calling in from today. Looks like we got Texas, Australia, Coffs Harbor, Rockford, Illinois, Sydney, Australia. Man, we've already gotten an amazing worldwide audience here. Orlando, London, very cool. As I mentioned, we opened up a little bit early to let everybody kind of settle in, and we'll get started right around the top of the hour, maybe a minute after, to let everybody get in. Finland's in the house. Got our first Canadian chiming in from Ontario. So I'm actually at an event in Las Vegas. It's one of my first events back in person, MSP industry, Channel Futures, Channel Partners event. And it's definitely, we're slowly, at least in the States, slowly, I guess, getting back to some normalcy at the events, although there's still some precautions, of course, being taken. And yeah, I mean, curious if anybody else in the audience has attended an in-person event yet. Mark, you been to a Robin Robbins event? Robin's actually got a Vegas event as well at the same time here, if that's what you. Oh, cool. You went to the Acronis one. Yeah, I saw that. Was last week, I think. Drew, yeah, I was there. Invarosoft was there as well. Connect IT in Vegas. That was the first event I had been back to in almost since COVID, essentially. So we're coming up on the top of the hour. Probably get started maybe 1 minute after the top of the hour, just to give as many people a chance to get in and kind of hear things from the start. And just for a little bit of housekeeping, you can, of course, we love to make things interactive. So we do have some time set aside for Q&A. You can put it in chat. It definitely be preferable if you put it in the Q&A. There's a Q&A button. I'm sure most of you know that at this point with Zoom, but it's definitely helpful to put it there just because it keeps it categorized as a Q&A versus some of the chat that goes on during the event. So that would be helpful. But yeah, please, we welcome questions today. Probably get started here in about 30 seconds or so. Scott coming in with the hard-hitting questions quickly. Jamie will have to answer that question. Where did Invaro in the name come from? So Jamie, maybe when we kick things over to you for your keynote, you can inform us of that. Got Seattle. Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. First, want to thank everybody for joining us here today. So my name is Matt Solomon. I am the CEO founder of Channel Halo. Perhaps some of you in the industry know me from my days back at ID Agent, where I was the first employee, and helped bring that organization through acquisition, later through Kaseya. But in this Channel Halo capacity, got to know Jamie over the last couple months, and was really excited when he asked me to play MC for this event. That's always a kind of a fun gig for me. And what's really cool about this event, is there's really no customer service experience events that have really ever taken place in the MSP space. So really, this is the only MSP event focused on customer experience and innovation. A lot of times you guys are talking about your RMM, your PSAs, and this is just not a topic that we hear about at trade shows. It's especially right now. It's obviously all about security at a lot of these shows. And another great thing about today is that there's no vendor pitches. There's no hidden vendor pitches. It's really going to be all about customer experience. And what's really neat is we're going to have some MSP perspectives from around the world. So later on, there's going to be a panel with 4 MSPs from really different regions of the world. We've got an amazing keynote with Jeanne Bliss, and she's the former general manager of customer loyalty at Microsoft. So it's really fun. I always think it's interesting when we're able to bring people outside of our industry because learn different best practices. Although she's in the industry in the sense of IT, but not somebody we necessarily always hear from at an MSP event. So I think that's really cool to get to hear from her. And she's going to really talk about how to grow and be successful with a focus on that customer experience. Like I mentioned, the panel will follow after that. But really, we're going to kick things off today with the man himself, Jamie Warner, who, again, I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the last few months. And the one thing I can tell you about Jamie is that he is the most passionate person I've ever met about customer experience. He lives it, he breathes it, and he wants to help MSPs discover the hidden gems behind it. He's also an MSP himself, so he certainly knows and understands your business. And I'm going to hand things over to Jamie. He's going to talk about how to grow a $9 million MSP.
Thanks, Matt, and really excited to be here. Thank you to everybody that's decided to come along and find out a little bit more about customer experience and innovation. And I really appreciate Matt emceeing today. Always a great contributor to the MSP industry, and a pleasure to have you. So let's get stuck into it. I'm going to give you some insights into how to grow a $9 million MSP. That's what I've managed to achieve. It only took 21 years, but obviously it's been a long journey and I've learned a lot along the way. So what I want to do today is give you my 9 tips on what I think you need to do to build a great MSP. And obviously, weaving in between that, you will see that there is obviously a customer experience angle to it, but there's also innovation. And innovation does not necessarily mean it has to be a technology innovation. It could just be an innovation in the way in which you do something and the way you think about things. And so hopefully, with every presentation I do, the goal is to at least get one gold nugget that you can take away and improve your business. So fingers crossed you get that gold nugget, and I'll get stuck into it. So the first tip, you've probably heard it 1,000 times in terms of running your business, which is you do need to be clear on your vision. Okay, so if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I need to, I'm not growing fast enough. I need to transition away from some of my break fix to managed. I'd like more time. I'd like more money. All these sorts of things. You do need to be clear on your vision, because unless you put a line in the sand, unless you make it actually something that's documented, then you won't get there. Now, a lot of people will talk about vision versus purpose. Purpose is why you get out of bed every day. The purpose of my MSP was to innovate and improve the way IT services are provided to SMB. It's partly why we built a lot of tech internally, because we're always trying to innovate the way it's being done. We were very clear and aligned to our purpose, and it's why Invarosoft sort of popped out the side of the MSP business in that sense. But one of the things you have to do with vision is more of a destination. That's kind of where you're going, and vision will change. Purpose doesn't tend to change, but your vision will, but you need to be clear on it. So let's give you an example. you want to be clear on what you want to build. And a great book to read, if you haven't read it, is definitely Good to Great. It's not specifically about vision, but it does give you a wonderful insight into the building blocks of what is required to build an outlier company, something that really stands the test of time and grows faster than what others do in your own market. But here's an example of what we call a painted picture. This is my MSP's painted picture from a couple of years ago. And really what we're trying to do here is have a one-pager. A painted picture doesn't need to be one page. You could have 2 or 3 pages and make it look nice and fancy. That's is what we managed to create. And really what we were trying to do is make it clear to ourselves and to our team what we were trying to build. And bearing in mind, we've been around for 21 years, you can see there that eNerds 3.0, Australia's leading SMB outsourced IT provider. But what does that actually look like? What is that vision? Well, and be specific about it. So if you're going to do a vision, it's not arbitrarily saying, well, I'd just like to be better and I hope we can grow a little bit. You have to be specific. How many clients do you want to get on a managed basis? So you can see there for us, we've actually calculated that 157 clients does actually translate to around that 10 million revenue mark. We're currently at about 130 clients. Those numbers are a little bit out. And we're currently at the 9 million mark. So we're almost there. So it's quite exciting. And this is a vision that has been in place for a couple of years that we've been slowly growing towards. Now, our growth is not done through acquisition. You'll probably hear a lot of stories of those that have done it through acquisition. And that's a wonderful way of scaling really fast. And it's typically what needs to be done in our space. But this is a vision that we sort of slowly itching our way for based on organic growth. You can see there's 60 people, number of cities, and voted best places to work. So that's an example of a vision. And I really recommend that if you don't have something written down specifically that you can stick on the wall and tell your staff of what we're trying to achieve, it's like the law of attraction. If you don't do that, it just doesn't seem to happen. You need to have a North Star that you're striving towards, and it works really well. So what did I want personally to build? So back in 2009, 8, 9, I'd already been going for 9 years. 9 years of battling away. And I was very much in the MSP business at that point. And I turned to my brother who really helped build the MSP at the time. And I said, mate, I don't know if we're ever going to be, Facebook squillionaires from this type of thing. And if we're not, then perhaps we should try and build something that gives us other things. And so we decided that we didn't want to be in the day-to-day of the business specifically. We are obviously a little bit now, but not what we were before. And so we were really striving for freedom in the business. And what we wanted was to build a management team, and that would give us that freedom. We wanted to really focus on working on the business, and we wanted to see it as an asset. So that's what I wanted personally. And I'm pleased to say we managed to achieve it. And interestingly, most of you are only 2 staff away from achieving that, because what you really need in an MSP is a general manager or a VP of sales, someone that will take that ownership of new business and also how you sell to clients with your network audits and all those sorts of things. And then you need a GM or a manager of your technical division. When you have those 2 people in place, you're really setting yourself up for getting some freedom there. And freedom can be time. When I thought of it, it was just time. But obviously over time, the money side of things can give you that freedom because it becomes an asset. It really becomes an asset. So have a think about that in regards to your vision and what do you want as a company? What is your destination? And what do you want personally? Write it down and then work backwards to achieve it. So in terms of the second tip, it's definitely business model. There's still a lot of MSPs out there that have a break fix component of it. And there's a lot of MSPs that are still invoicing. Now, in my experience, if you really want to scale something, it needs to be done on a managed basis and on a direct debit basis. The managed side of things, like break fix is great, but it's transactional. And it's really hard to build something where you're uncertain when that revenue is going to come in, it's much easier conceptually, and you'll see this in the presentation, to basically build a platform, your concrete slab of the company that just gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time based on annuity revenue and guaranteed revenue. So certainly, I know that this is pretty obvious, but you may over time have to really think about the break fix component to your business. We decided we just didn't want to do it anymore. It really wasn't helping us grow. We had it just like everybody else, and we decided to convert them all to managed and gracefully exit from that relationship with the ones that just didn't want to go on that journey with us. And we never really looked back, because then it became more obvious on how to build it. And certainly direct debit, or I believe in the US, North America, it's ACH, whatever you call it, where you take someone's money, that is absolutely mission critical. Cash flow is king. In the first 10 years of that MSP, I never saw, I saw 90% of SMB clients not pay you on time, not on exactly the right time. They were always 14 days, 30 days late. And that really has a massive impact on you being able to run the business properly as you scale. So if you have dreams to go from 500,000 revenue to 1 million to 2 million to 3 million to 4 million, I can tell you from experience, it is so much easier if you don't have to worry about the cash flow. And these days, we will all know that your distributors, so Paxate, some of these guys, well, it certainly is the case in Australia, they'll start direct debiting you for those annuity things that you're selling. So Office 365, and it could be your phone supply, whatever it happens to be. That can also get you in a bit of a pickle. My MSP actually direct debits about, we get direct debited just from the CSP licensing around 80 grand a month. So if we weren't direct debiting on the flip side, you can appreciate that that would be a bit of a tricky thing to handle month in, month out, just to ensure that you're covering that cost. And especially because those licensings is a very low margin. So definitely think about that as you want to grow this MSP business. How can you just focus on the annuity side of things? So the second thing is a growth mindset. Now, I know this is pretty obvious, but I did want to make a point about this. And it's to all the technical business owners out there, because luckily, I guess, if you didn't know, I'm not super technical. My brother was technical and the people around me were technical. I love talking about it. And back in the day, I used to love talking about servers and hot swap drives and all that sort of stuff. I thought it was pretty cool once I learned it. And I was always interested in it, but I'm not technical. And what that means is that I just never get sucked in to the day-to-day outside of sort of sales and quoting and project management. I used to do all of that stuff, the stuff that wasn't technical in the business, but I never really got caught in to focusing on implementation, rolling up the sleeves and getting into it. So it's a bit lucky and it is a bit unusual. But what it meant is that all I've ever cared about is sales and growth. It is a mindset thing. And I appreciate that really 9 out of 10 MSP owners are technical, and it's almost like you can't help yourself but want to get dragged into it. So in a growth mindset in the context of an MSP, it's really, and you'll see this as in the next few slides as well, you do need to be thinking about literally signing up more clients all the time. And it must be a major part of your mindset if you want to move the business forward. If you don't, that's cool. But if you really do want to grow it and get it a little bigger and give yourself that freedom, then you do actually have to start flicking the mindset of about growth, about treating it like an asset rather than a job. Okay. And so obviously there's all these little widgety things you can explain that, but a growth mindset, you're always thinking, can I try a different strategy? Is this the best way? Maybe I'll take some time and effort to kind of think about how to do things, whereas fixed is like, oh, I can't do that, or hasn't worked in the past. I'm not going to try it again. It's all too hard, right? So you really want to focus on it. And here's an Australian analogy of these termite hills, which are absolutely enormous in the Northern Territory. But if you can see out there, imagine all of those termite hills are MSPs. Right? And everyone's trying to grow, and some will grow faster than others. And those that really focus on growth magically are the ones that actually grow more. The ones that keep thinking about the in it stuff. Oh, I've got to go out and do this job and this job and this job. They're the ones that never really give the mind share to the tactical things you need to do to grow. And here's a concept that I'll end this point on, which is, do you handbrake your growth because of your mindset? And what I mean by that is that if the thing about growing an MSP is that every time you sign up a new client, you actually are creating more work for yourself. It gets busier and busier and busier. And so there is this feeling of like, of counterintuitive feeling of growth where you're like, well, I want to grow, but oh my God, now I'm going to have to hire more staff, or we need to get that process sorted out, or my RMM isn't sorted out. I never really worried about any of that sort of stuff. You do need to think about that stuff, but that's a good problem to have. In my view, you shouldn't let the energy of the difficulty of scaling stop you from scaling. And I know that this happens because that's how my brother thinks. Well, hang on, we're not ready yet. Or like, are you sure you want to, hang on, we're probably going to get these systems sorted out. Well, you do, but if you keep thinking that way, you do handbrake your growth. And literally, as I said before, I genuinely think that that's an energy you put out to the world, and leads just don't come your way if deep down you genuinely are worried about growth and what the implications are. You should absolutely take it seriously. You should absolutely get systems and those things sorted out, but just don't let it handbrake, a growth mindset. So I hope that makes sense. So now let's look at some metrics. This is a real point that's close to my heart, and it's very much around what I'm talking about thinking about growing your MSP and some of the first points that I've made. Do you have a sales target around growth, around new business, and do you dashboard it? I speak to hundreds of MSPs now because of Invarosoft, and honestly, I don't think I've met anyone that dashboards it. There's obviously those out there that have a sales target, but honestly, it's the most simple thing, but most people don't do it. So what do I mean by that? Here's an example of a sales target for a medium MSP, a la my MSP. And these are my numbers. So currently, this is how you work out your sales target, by the way. So this is what I'm guiding you through, is that our monthly support is $250,000 a month. I remember when it was $1,000 a month. I remember when it was $5. I remember when it was 10. This is that point about something that can grow over time. And that's the great thing about annuity revenue. But you do have to factor in churn. We've probably signed up $500,000 or more of support deals, but obviously it settles down to $250 when you factor in churn. Now, churn, this is how you work out your sales target. You go, all right, what's my monthly amount? $250. If I churn 10% dollar-wise of that, so I don't mean badge, I mean dollar. If I was to churn 10%, that's $25,000 a month. Now, we don't churn 10% every year. Sometimes it's 3 or 4%, sometimes it's 6 or 7, but we base the number on 10% as a worst case scenario, right? And believe me, it's easy for it to just pile up. If you've got a few whales in your MSP, then you can absolutely churn a couple of clients and instantly your numbers just get thrown out of whack. So therefore, the sales target, we put as 20% of that as a stretch goal. So for my MSP, what we've actually done is the minimum we need to sign up in new business, so new support deals, that does not include internet, Office 365 licensing, backup, DR, any of that stuff that you're reselling. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the amount you charge for monthly support. We put that as 50 grand stretch goal and a $40,000 minimum goal. So we've got to sign up $40,000 a year just to keep the engine moving forward. Otherwise, you stall or you go backwards. It's just as simple as that. These are the only numbers that matter in terms of the growth of the MSP, as long as you've got your procurement side sorted out, which I'll mention in a second. So what does a smaller MSP look like? So these are smaller MSPs. Let's say your current monthly support is $25,000 a month. Well, potential churn is probably closer to 20% because on a dollar figure, because if you've only got a few clients, but your average client's pretty good size, let's say it's $1,500 or $2,500, you can see that you could easily lose like 2 clients and it'd be 20%. So the numbers do sort of increase in this regard. And your sales target, I would argue, should be way more than what I've got. Because all of us, when I was small, I was able to sign up $40,000. Like, you should be able to sign up at the very least $15,000 of support every year. I mean, at an average of $1,500 or $2,000, you know, it's 5 or 6 clients a year. Even if you're doing the sales yourself, you should be able to do that. So this is what I highly recommend you go away now. You could literally do this on a napkin and pick a number and absolutely go for it, because it's super important. And then what you do is you then create an Excel spreadsheet where this bit at the top is your new business for the year. So you have your client that you're winning down the left column. You have the months of the year over the top, and then you use your formulas and you just create the totals, you know, along the row, and then down the bottom, you adding it all up. And you check in on this every month, at least every couple of weeks, every week. Have a look. How am I tracking? Am I hitting my target? It might be slow, but if once again you don't dashboard it, how are you ever going to know you get there? How many times do you get to the end of the year and you sort of go, oh, geez, how did I go? Like, how many did I sign up? Oh, yeah, I thought I was busy. Gee whiz. You know, because you didn't even know, because you didn't document it. So you need to put a spreadsheet like this so you can calculate how many deals you're winning over the year and keep yourself accountable and fire yourself up a bit if you're not getting there. And then, of course, you need to factor in your churn. So you need to sort of have another little formula over here to sort of say what your net increase is and so on and so forth. But you do need to write down your churn, because believe me, it adds up. And for those that are watching going, oh, I don't churn, you're always going to churn. Of course you are. Clients go out of business. They get, especially if you've got a few medium-sized clients, they get bought out all the time. So it's easy to lose a client that has nothing to do with your service standards. So there you go. That's how you should be dashboarding it. That's how we've been doing it for years. And it's why we keep ourselves accountable and why we keep the business moving forward. So you have to have a think about this. When you go to bed at night, do you sit there thinking about numbers and those sort of targets like I do? Or do you think about putting out fires? Numbers or fires? If you want the growth mindset and you want to grow, you've got to start thinking more around these numbers and less about the in it stuff, the fires and all those sorts of things, because that is a mindset change. That is the biggest difference. And honestly, that is the difference between how I think and how most other people think in terms of growing the MSP. It's really simple in terms of those sign up more deals, then you lose every year and you'll grow. So a couple of other points. Sales manager, bearing in mind time. Have you resigned the sales function in your business to a part-time job? I said earlier, you're generally 2 hires away from being free in your business. It took me a long time to hire a sales manager. It took me 10 years. I always thought I didn't need it. But one of the things I realized is that when you're the business owner selling, it literally is a part-time job of sales. And with a part-time job, because of course you're never going to spend 40 hours a week thinking about signing up clients or going and seeing clients and talking about their roadmaps, right? You're not going to do it. You can't do it because you're just busy on other things. You're either in the business doing something technical, or it's HR related, or it's finance related, etc., etc. So you have to think about that sales function. And at some point in time, you do need to consider hiring a salesperson. This is literally my sales guy. And he was a year older than me when I signed. Well, he still is, magically, a year older than me. So he was in the same sort of age group. And he was what I like to describe as sort of an old bull. He was an old young bull in the sense that he had had some good track record. He had worked at a Fuji Xerox. And so he was used to going and talking about technology to SMBs. And he still had a lot of energy in the tank to try and help us build. So when he came on board, we were at 3 mil. In the first year, he added $1 million in revenue. And the reason he did that was because of, yes, a little bit of new business, but a lot of procurement. And I'll talk about the procurement thing in a second. But have a think about that. At some point, you're going to have to hire a salesperson in your business. And just remember this, don't be scared. I actually think, and I was in this bucket as well as an MSP owner, is that because of the predictable nature of the revenue, you can handbrake your entrepreneurialism. So you go, oh, I don't want to hire a sales guy. That's too risky. What if it doesn't work? Oh, and it's going to cost a fortune. Well, the reality is you're going to know within 3 to 6 months whether that person's going to work. So let's throw out a number of 100 grand, 150 grand for someone like that. You're not going to spend 100 to 150 grand to learn this. You're going to spend 30 grand. And is it worth 30 grand to figure out whether or not you can really take yourself out of that role and scale the business? My advice to you, if you do it, is that that person has to focus on new business and the advisory part. So they're the person that should also go out and speak to the clients about their roadmaps and do those larger deals. Okay. And your role becomes the sales director. You need to work on your sales strategy and all that sort of stuff. So thank you, Sam. And let's talk about that sales playbook quickly. How much time do you spend on your playbook? Do you have a playbook? Every time you get a lead, do you follow the same process? You take the call, you get them on the phone, you book in a meeting. How much time have you spent on your IT services proposal? This is one that we give Invarosoft partners, which is the eNerds one. But how much time do you spend on it? I've spent so much time working page by page. It's like a legal argument. I have figured out the best way to do it. I've taken concepts from Simon Sinek, Start With Why, Monetizing Innovation to get my pricing and packaging. Customer experience is a massive part of how we differentiate. When everyone else is running around saying, oh, we use mouse pads and stickers, and to call us, you do this, I'm sitting there explaining this amazing customer experience with the apps and client portals that we have. It makes a difference, believe me. And that's not just the only thing that makes a difference. It's how you price and package, all that sort of stuff. Do you have a call to action? These are the things I've worked on. I've noticed most MSPs do not spend enough time on the actual proposal and how you guide a customer through a discussion. Most MSP proposals are, yep, we do all of this stuff. We're awesome at it. And here's my price. So it's all about the what. And if you understand Simon Sinek, he talks about starting with why, then the how, and the what is obviously the bits you do. No one really cares about the what. They know you're an MSP. They know you've got the tools. They expect you to have all of that sort of stuff. They want to know why they should partner with you from a relationship perspective. And so you must tailor your proposal accordingly. So have a read of those books. Start with why. Watch this video if you can't be bothered reading that. And certainly Monetizing Innovation. It says there how smart companies design the product around the price. For those of you that know me, you know I love good, better, best. It's the only way to go. One package is ridiculous. I can go, I haven't included information about that today in terms of giving you my diatribe on it, but certainly have a think about it. But here's the next point, sales compression. This is something that gets missed. So you're focusing now on your sales proposal. Most of the coaches out there just talk about getting leads. They don't actually help you with the proposal. So you really want to think about how you structure your proposal to nail it every time and increase conversion. That was probably my final point on that, is that you must focus on conversion. If leads are hard to get, then conversion is really all you can do. Spend more time on the conversion. We're at 47% conversion. Then you can grow so much faster, going from, like, say, a 30% conversion to 47%. Makes a massive difference. But sales compression never gets talked about. And what I'm talking about here is your procurement pipeline. If you get your clients and you do another little spreadsheet and you put your 50 managed clients down the left side, and then you go, okay, well, how much could I sell to them? It could be a couple of PCs, could be a new firewall, router, switch, could be a migration, Office 365, could be a relocation, whatever, right? You go down the side and you add up arbitrarily what you think it is. I would put it to you all that there's probably a $10,000 pipeline for every client, when you're factoring in desktops and everything, for every client. So if you've got 50 clients, there's a $500,000 pipeline. And what most MSPs do is they, don't do that exercise and put it in a spreadsheet. They don't even know what their pipeline is. And B, even if they did know what their pipeline is, they don't actually get out there and try and squeeze, so compression, the deal flow that you have into a shorter period of time. Now, I told you earlier that Sam increased our revenue by $1 million in that first year, right? He did that through sales compression. Because what he did, which was what I wasn't doing and my brother wasn't doing, was going out and actually seeing clients, having conversations, and getting them to make a buying decision. All right. So you've got to squeeze your deal flow into a shorter period of time. And this is where we've brought some some process innovation to what Invarosoft is doing. The market said to us, oh, we want VCIO. And okay, great. If we're going to have to build VCIO, let's build what we do in our MSP and use this buying psychology. So when we present an audit, we present the audit results like every other VCIO tool in a traffic light system. But the bit we've been doing, and we've been doing this in a Word document for 10 years, is that when we present recommendations, we don't just have a budget. Oh, budget item this. How does that help a customer make a buying decision? It doesn't, because then you've got to go away and do a quote. And like, if you said, oh, yes, you could do offsite backup, there's obviously lots of options. So you need to guide a customer through and make that easier. So we built this concept called Solution Builder, and it enables you to go through line by line, give them options. It shows you're on their side. It shows that you're sensitive to their budget. It actually shows you've got better technical acumen rather than an arbitrary budget field per item. And you're now getting that customer to make a buying decision, because in this software, you can actually go through and say, all right, which one do you want? They click and it starts adding it up down the right. But this is an example of innovation around sales. Forget the fact that it's in a software now. It doesn't matter. You could do this in a Word document. The point is, it's the innovation around getting a customer to make a buying decision. If you can go and have the conversations faster, but then get them to make a buying decision faster through better sales acumen and process, boom, you will grow your MSP. And that is something that never gets talked about. It frustrates me, as you could probably tell. And it is something that you should absolutely think about in terms of scaling your MSP. $1 million in that first year we grew because of that. So number 8, purple cow. I've talked about this ad nauseum before, but it's so important you've got to think about it. Do you focus on CX and do you differentiate? So there's a book there called Purple Cow by Seth Godin. If you haven't read it, check it out. What he's in principle saying is that if you rock up to a sales meeting for new business, bearing in mind there'll be 2 other MSPs turning up to present their services as well, do you honestly think you're a purple cow? Do you honestly think you're a purple cow, and do you stand out? Are you remarkable? Are you memorable, right, when you exit that meeting? So that is where I was talking before about your sales playbook. Your proposal itself is a purple cow. The way you talk about the why first is your purple cow. Your pricing and packaging is your purple cow. Invarosoft platform, for example, whatever CX platform you're using, is a purple cow. If you're using a CX platform and you don't have it in your IT services proposal, you're missing out on opportunity to explain on how you differentiate. So let's just have a look at what's going on in the market. These guys get talked about a lot. I love talking about them because it's an example of, well, it's crazy because you've basically got an MSP that's raised over $100 million to be an MSP. I mean, it's a professional service. It's crazy that they did that. They started out by talking about, oh, we're going to do assisted, live chat or AI related services. They've dialed that back now. If you go to their website, they don't talk about that anymore. But the principle stands is that they've gone to market with an innovative approach. Whether you like electric or you don't care about them, it doesn't matter. Electric are in the market challenging the status quo of what it means to be an MSP. They are. It's what I've tried to do at a small scale with no funding, right? And you can see that our growth has been quite slow comparative to these guys. 3 years ago, they had 5,000 or 10,000 devices under management. Now they're at 40,000 devices under management, over 100 million in run rate revenue or something like that. It's ridiculous. Yes, they've done that through raising money, but they've done it by explaining that there is a modern way to do IT services. They talk about Slack and Teams. What do you talk about when you rock up? Your mousepad and email approach? This is the difference. This is where the market's going. This is what you've got to think about. Now, you may sit there and think to yourself, well, I haven't lost any deals to electric and I may never lose any deals to electric. No, you may not. But you may miss out on signing up new clients because of them. So you may not get churn because of it, but I guarantee it's going to affect your sales conversion because other people are out there talking up a modern experience, and most of the MSP industry sitting on this email support approach are talking the old way of doing it. So if you believe customer experience is important, what we believe is that, and we should all know this, is that every MSP is a customer experience business. And so customer experience is everything. And if you believe that, then are you really following that, or are you a Nokia MSP? So part of today's summit is to challenge your thinking. Are you a Nokia MSP or are you this iPhone modern MSP? All right, I've got a couple of minutes left. So number 9, patience and focus. Unfortunately, it's going to take some time. It has taken me 21 years. It takes some time. If you want to do it organically, it is going to take time. And the reason is that we're a relationship business. We're selling relationships. That's always hard to scale. The flip side is that our churn is low because of that. And I probably prefer that. I'd rather have a little bit harder with sales, but then have less churn. I like sort of predictability. I like not having to worry too much about that sort of stuff for business. So that works well. But because of that, it's going to take you time. So you just don't lose focus on hitting your new support plan, KPI every year, and reducing churn. If there's one takeaway from my short spiel here, is these numbers. Please focus on your numbers, write them down, put it in a spreadsheet. If it's the one thing I could help you all do, is do that. Even if you're not signing up that many deals, I don't care, put it in there anyway, because it might motivate you to kind of push a little harder, and it might actually lift the veil a little bit on really what's affecting your growth. It probably is the churn or the new business or a combination of both. So to conclude, just to let you know what's new on the Invarosoft platform. There's a bunch of cool stuff that's new. We've got our Teams app. We're just waiting for it to get out of the Microsoft, through the Microsoft store, so that we're expecting that in the next week or so. And once we do, that'll be out the door. We've got our client portal. We've got, when we release the Teams app, we've got our Office 365 PSA user sync, so you'll be able to keep your PSA up to date. If you weren't aware, we've got live chat, identity security, secure 2FA messaging, and a awesome VCO platform. You've got a sniff of it with that good, better, best scenario. That is where all the other VCO platforms fall apart a little bit. So check it out if you're not aware of what we're doing. And I guess my final thought before I hand over to our keynote speaker, who I'm really excited to hear about, Jeanne, is just think about, are you that Nokia mousepad MSP, or do you want a more modern approach to how you go to market like electric? That's the challenge I put forward to you. Thank you for listening. I hope you got a gold nugget from my presentation today. And if you have any questions, I'm sure there are some in there. We can do that. And my final comment, because that was the very first question, where does Invarosoft come from? You remember that the purpose for being for Invarosoft, or for my MSP, which has flowed through to Invarosoft, was to innovate and improve the way IT services are provided. Invarosoft is a very, very, very loose derivative from the word innovation, and that's why we picked that name.
Yeah. And Jamie, we have that was great, very informative session, and we have a couple of minutes before Jeanne joins us. Keith asked the question, did you choose to target SMB or simply end up there? When asked about verticals we serve, I often reflect and think we just ended up there.
No, we started SMB. You've got to remember, I was 22 when I started, and I'm not technical. And so I was really relying on the skill set of people around us, and it became clear that SMB is kind of the sweet spot, and it was probably a technical limitation more than anything else. When I look around at other MSPs that have sort of gone mid-market, they tend to have a business owner that is either worked in enterprise before, so really understands the space, understands the challenges, and obviously has the technical acumen to back it up to do large scale rollouts. We were probably, you know, if we're being honest, just skill set wise SMB, and I had more experience in SMB, just, you know, in university jobs and all that sort of stuff. So it sort of made sense to us, and we decided early on to try and be the best SMB focused MSP we could.
Got it. So Scott asked, and maybe we won't hold you to three, but as he said, what are three quick tips for the convert client conversation, current or new client, from break fix per project, thinking to manage services? So how you know, if you have some quick tips on that?
Well, the first tip is you go to market and you say, right, we're going to more of a managed approach, because that just makes more sense for us to be managing your infrastructure. It is really our mandate to just constantly make sure that your infrastructure is up and running. On that basis, I have 3 plans for you to choose. And what you do is you create the first plan as a conversion of what you're already charging them to monthly. So there's no increase in cost, but now they're paying monthly, and you can build on that. You might want to have a very low desktop rate, or the actual desktop rate that you want to charge in the future, and then a very low server rate in that sense. So depending on how you want to do it, everybody charges a bit differently, but conceptually, package 1 is what they're paying now. Package 2, good, better, best, is a little bit more, and that's where you give them a bit more, give them, you know, on-site support included for, you know, as unlimited, and you're the one that manages how many times you go out on site, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you have your third package, which is a lot more expensive. Now you're using good, better, best. The first one is what they're paying now, so they really can't say no, because you basically take the whole year, average it out, work out what they've been spending, and there or thereabouts, that's the first package. They can't really say no to that if you want to keep them as a client and if you want to charge that rate. So there's a quick example of what you could do to get a pretty high conversion. And if they don't want to go on any of those, then it just is what it is.
Got it. Next question from Sheila. What compensation scheme do you follow for salespeople?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And hi, Sheila. So when we hired our sales manager, he was getting a commission of the first month of the support plan that he was signing up. Remember, that was his main focus. Well, there were two main focuses: support deals, and of course the procurement side of things. So if he signed up a deal that was $5,000 a month, he'd get, I think when he first started, it was like 90% of that. But let's just say it's a month, so he got $5,000. Boom. And I think he only got paid that after 3 months of them staying. And then he also got a small percentage of the profit of the procurement. But really what you want to look at is you want to ask a salesperson, what is their expectations? So if someone says, well, I want 200,000, then you just manufacture it so that they could make that based on hitting your own KPIs. So you go, well, I'll put you on 120 base and your target's 40,000 of new support deals. So there's 40,000 that they're going to get. So now they're at 160. And then the other 40,000 you say, well, and you've got to sell, because you work out the target of what you really want for the business. I want that you to sell $1 million worth of procurement or whatever it is. And at a certain percentage, that'll get you to your 200,000. So that's probably the way to think about it, is working backwards based on what they are actually looking for.
Yeah, and this is a challenge every business has on how to compensate salespeople.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. Yeah. And just so you know, now he's on way more than that, and it's just base, because he's been with me 11 years. He's proven his worth. He's scaled the business, and he pretty much just gets paid to be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a constantly evolving thing. Maybe the last question, I think we got 2 minutes about before we kick things off. Sales and hiring a salesperson is a challenge. We do not come on, sell. Where can I'm just kind of skipping ahead. Where can I fit a salesperson into the process? I don't know. Actually, Jimmy, if you can read, I don't know if you can click on the Q&A. I feel like I was reading that incorrectly, but it's from Keith. I just want to make sure you kind of understand it, because it's a little bit of a longer question.
Well, they do that for you. So what you've got to understand is that a GM of sales has to be a proxy for you. So if you are in this mindset that salespeople are dirty and that there's no place for them in the market, that's fine. I understand why you would think that, but unfortunately, that's not how the buyer thinks. The buyer actually needs salespeople, of which you are doing that at the moment. You are the salesperson. They need someone in a consultative capacity to guide them through making a buying decision. Hence why I was talking about the VCIO process before. And in that sense, you are really looking for your proxy in a salesperson. You are looking for you. That is the thing that I didn't realize, is that you're not actually looking for a hardcore sale. You are looking for someone that loves sales, but you are looking for someone that's more relationship and consultative in their approach. So that when you look at them, you're like, yeah, they just pretty much, live and breathe the way I think about the world, in the way that we should communicate to a customer. If you have someone that is literally a used car salesman trying to speak to a customer, then of course that's not going to work, right? So think about it more of replacing yourself with yourself. That is the best way to think about a salesperson, so that you understand how that they will function in your business.
Great answer. So Jamie, I think we're going to transition to Keynote. We're going to be joined by Jeanne Bliss, who for 35 years of experience in leading companies like Microsoft to earn business growth and achieve over a 98% retention rate. And so what she's going to do is she's going to teach us some of the 5 steps and frameworks to launch and advance a customer experience transformation in your business as well. So I know, Jamie, we're delighted to have Jeanne join us. Jeanne, are you there?
I am here. Hi, everybody. Good to be with you today. How's everybody doing?
Everybody's doing it. If you're doing well, put a 1 in the chat. Just the number 1. We want to make sure you're listening.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get started.
Excellent.
And Jamie, I was listening in. It was great to hear what you were talking about. We're just so in sync. This is really about growth. A lot of people think customer experience is something that's nice to have, but in fact, it's a way you choose to grow your business, accelerate your business in a very deliberate way. This isn't about seeing problems and whack-a-moling them away. It's really about leadership. People seem to think it might even be something that you acquiesce to customer success or your customer service department. But it's a mind shift more than anything else, because as an organization, loyalty, advocacy, renewals are about earning the right to that growth by improving the life that you serve and by delivering all the way along the way. A lot of people think about renewal as an activity. It shouldn't be an activity. It should be something that comes naturally, because your customer couldn't imagine being with anyone else. You know, a lot of times when I talk to companies around the world, this is what we look at and what we see. It's a series of action items that are built silo by going into the data and cherry picking what they think is broken, versus looking across the customer journey and understanding from a united company standpoint what we need to deliver. And so this work is about moving from project plan movement, where you see a bunch of separateness that the customer doesn't see, but we get a false positive. We discern that we're taking action, to customer life improvement. But that has to happen by uniting those silos. And whether you're a big business or a small business, you over time develop areas of expertise. When you're smaller and younger and more agile, you probably are all working together. But as you grow, and I've even seen in a lot of family-owned businesses, this separateness that occurs because people are doing their own thing separately and the customer doesn't see the outcome. And that difficulty in doing business with you usually is a result of you're not uniting and gluing and focusing from the customer standpoint. So we've all had this experience. I call it an "it depends" experience, and I'm having it a lot lately with supply chain issues and other things. It depends when you call a company or reach out to a company or your customers reach out to you. Are you delivering an experience that depends on the person, the channel, the product, what side of the bed they woke up on? In fact, I'm trying to deal with lots of things right now, and it totally depends on who I reach. The work, especially in your business where you're helping B2B companies be stable and deliver, is about reliability, reliably delivering peace of mind to them, reliably delivering the promise, reliably delivering scalability, reliably delivering the solutions that they need. And a lot of times people believe that reliability is boring, but it's not. It is the key to growth, especially in a B2B business, because if you deliver based on what they need, and they can say very clearly the goals that they have, they're achieving more because you're with them, then that's growth. And so what I want to introduce to you, instead of this word loyalty, which is sometimes from an attitudinal standpoint something to go get from customers, is to think about instead this word desire, which is, are you delivering an experience that your customers want to have again, that they yearn for because you help them, your people help them, your products help them, and it's united. What we know, though, is that this isn't always happening. We're delivering this "it depends" experience, and in fact, more and more customer experience is a definer on if somebody's going to stay with you in both B2B and B2C. In fact, here we have a statistic that says 96% of B2B customers say that experience will directly affect their decision to buy again. Now, what we know in technology businesses is often that we think it's about the product. If we build it, they will come. It's not just the product, it's what you wrap around the product, your people, the ability that you have to proactively understand when your product's not delivering, and keeping your customers from falling into the black hole that happens when your silos aren't connected. And in fact, what we know here is also that when you deliver a better experience that really helps them grow their business, people will pay more. You will earn a premium, and you won't be shopped around. You won't be shopped based only on price. We're all living in an Amazon world. Whether you're growing a B2B company or a B2C company, Reliability was Amazon's growth engine, and whether you love them or hate them or somewhere in between, if they hadn't delivered that book right in 1995 when they first did books, they wouldn't have earned the right to every single one of these categories. And so you're going to hear me using the word earn continuously because it's not about getting or selling, it's about earning. The last thing I want to talk about reliability is this notion that sometimes people think it's about going after the wow moments. You know, when you check into a hotel, let's say, and they give you an option of what kind of pillow or chocolate to have, but if there's hair in the sink and dirt under the bed, you don't care about any of those extra wow things. And the London School of Economics validates that. In fact, they say that if you reduce negativity that gets in the way of your customer accomplishing what they've signed up to accomplish with you, you will grow 300% more and achieve more word of mouth than if you just go after the wow moments. So let me walk you through what I call leadership competencies. These are based on my 35 years of doing this work as a chief customer officer first at Land's End, Microsoft, Allstate, Mazda, and Coldwell Banker, writing these 4 books, but then since 2002, coaching these C-suite leaders around the world. And fundamentally, so much of this is not only about what you do, but also the underbelly or the culture of your organization and how you unite the company from a leadership way. I heard that we were talking about customers as a growth, and this is my first competency. It's, are you honoring and managing customers as the asset of your business? A lot of times we'll put up the flagpole, how many new customers we brought in. That just has to do with your ability to acquire, but your ability to grow has to do with what you delivered to them. So the question that you need to ask and do this simple math and get one version of the truth on is, as a result of the experience we all delivered, did we earn the right to grow? Hold on, somebody's at my door. We're just going to get the door now. Did we earn the right to grow? How many new customers did we bring in, volume and value? And you need to get an agreement on what new means. And in the same sentence, how many lost customers did we lose in that same month or quarter or year, so that we have an understanding of our net customer loss or growth? This is more important initially than survey scores, in my opinion, because you can't cross-tab your way out of it. You can't refute the methodology. You either kept more customers than you lost, or you didn't. The importance of this is also about caring about the why. I want to tell you a story about a company, Esri. Many of you may know Esri. They are one of the world's largest GIS companies. And what they did was, when they transferred their business from an account management based business to a pretty much of a SaaS model, they started to do what they called automated service, which is what a lot of us do as we're going to SaaS models. We think that this creates a trigger and we can be more hands off. But you need to have a blend of high tech and high touch, because especially in B2B, your best customers expect you to know who they are, know how much you contributed to them, and make concessions or honor them as the asset. For example, I have clients who have lost $50 million customers over a $300 change fee. What the thing that happens when these things occur is your customers say, don't you know who I am and how much I've contributed to your business? So back to the Esri story. For Esri, they had automated their trigger system of account management, and they didn't have any account management oversight on it. And so without really knowing the situation, they actually turned off the state of Maryland one day, a huge account of theirs. And what they learned from this is that automation is one thing, but we need to make sure that we're honoring our customers, not just triggering and creating these things that are no questions asked. So customers as asset is about this thing. It's about knowing also that you may have a 90% loyalty rate. This was one of the things I talked to Microsoft about. Look, but that for them was captive loyalty at the time. So think about your customer base and figure out if you're also working from a false positive standpoint. Regardless of if your loyalty rate is high or not, or your retention rate, this requires a mindset shift. It requires engagement patterns that are different when to know proactively when you reach out to your customers, knowing your best customers, and honoring and trusting your people to know the value of customers. And most importantly, this is about earning the right versus going after that score, because this is your customers voting with their feet. They either stay and buy more or they don't. And that to me is the true point of customer experience. The second competency is around building a business blueprint or a decision blueprint around the goals that your customers have. Often when I ask them for their journey map, it's really their sales pipeline. When in fact, your customer journey map should be instead what I call a goal map, a map of what work has to be done based on the goals that your customers have. So this is, for example, the work we did with the Smithsonian Institute. And what you'll see here is they thought about, in this instance, a teacher planning to go to the Smithsonian. What were they going to do? What did they need? And when you start thinking from your customer standpoint and their goals versus what you want to get from them, acquire, close, upsell, cross-sell, it earns those things, but it's not about what you do. What you need to do first is deliver to earn instead of getting. So that teacher needed to know about the information for planning her trip. So they reached out also to all these travel bureaus and travel agencies to make sure they were partners. They created an app. They allowed them to create lesson plans when they arrived at campus, know which building to go to. There's almost 200 buildings there in a zoo. They also created plans for them to experience a building, leave a building, exit the campus, and then have a back home plan with these students again. What this does is it glues the organization together, and it also moves us from this very individual division of our company work. This is another good example, which I think will resonate with many of you as well. When we were doing the work at Bombardier Aerospace, we were building their version of a goal map, and the very good, great parts and service people said, I want to deliver a parts and service experience. And I said to them, do your customers really want to have a parts and service experience? When we talk to their customers, of course, that's not what they wanted to have. They wanted to have a keep me flying experience. Now, a keep me flying experience is about uniting multiple parts of the organization. It's about having enough pilots so that they're there. It's about, yes, the parts and service, but the parts and service at the places when your customer has to land unscheduled. It's a concierge to keep them informed. And it's also about changing what you measure that glues those silos together, instead of how many parts and service we sold, but how many days are our customers in the air? How many days are they on the ground when they don't want to be? And how quickly do we get them back up in the air? That mind shift also fundamentally will organize your company. Here's a little action item you can do. And the first thing really has got to be listening and understanding and having what I call fearless conversations with your customers. Don't build your goal map all by yourself and then say, we're done. That's just a great day with post-it notes. You also need to unite your customers. Get them to be part of defining what the goals are that they want to achieve because they work with you. And then one of the other things that's very operational and makes this less than what feels like very conceptual is write the quotes you want to earn from customers of things that they can achieve by goal. So this aligning around experience or customer goals is about starting with understanding. So much of the time, surveys are about validating how we did versus understanding what the customer needs. So stop what you're doing, get customers together on Zoom or Teams or whatever, and simply define those goals and make them a part of your leadership language as well. Then unite on the goals. And finally, drive actions around those goals and glue your silos together. The third competency is about building what I call a customer listening path to tell the story of customers' lives. You know, I don't know how many ways you listen to customers. You may have social, you may have call center, you may have IT, but what we inadvertently do is we even present all of that stuff separately. So we go off and we skirmish silo by silo and do action items that, again, don't focus on uniting a customer or delivering on a goal. So instead, what I encourage you to do is create a common categorization by all those ways you listen, but then organize them by goal. So onboarding, here's what we heard from social, here's our IT issues, here's how many customers in real time didn't onboard on time or had issues. And then also require your leaders and your people to do what your customer's trying to do. You know, we call this anthropological listening. You need to live the life to know the life. If you're just watching and not listening and not doing it yourself, then it doesn't become personal. So figure out a way also that you all personally are involved in this listening. In fact, this is the work we did with Adobe, which was that we actually assigned and attached leadership, part of their bonus, to going out on a monthly basis and downloading the new products they had built and going in a listening lab and listening to customers. By doing that, it became very relevant, and it wasn't about dashboards. It was about customers, understanding their life, and improving that. And again, moving from validating how are we doing to understanding is critical. I say that again because they will cheer you on if you bring groups of customers together, 15 at a time, and just unite them and ask them, are these the goals? How are we doing? What's important to you? What's not working? And innovation comes from this understanding, not from asking in a survey, how did we do on onboarding? I guarantee you that. So building your customer listening path is about uniting how you listen. You know, so much of the time we don't do the hard work, and that categorization is interesting because as a leader, what you need are two things. One is tonnage, enough volume that points to the same thing, and convergence, meaning if you categorize everything commonly, you'll be able to see goal by goal where issues are pointing at the same thing based from a lot of different places. So you need to aggregate to know the impact. And then finally, focus. Instead of focusing by silo, as a leadership team, goal by goal, see where the issues are evolving, understand what's important, and then work on solving something that your customer feels and hears and can tell you back, versus those individual things that make us feel good because we have a long to-do list or action item list, but the customer doesn't experience it. That's why we get in a rut on these survey scores, and we don't understand why we're not making any progress. The fourth competency is what I call your revenue erosion early warning system. This gets to those KPIs we talked about, for example, with Bombardier Aerospace. Goal by goal, you should know the top one or two things that your customer needs to occur, and then measure yourself on those so that you know if you're meeting them or not before the calls, the tweets, and the frustrated customer calls come in. And one of the things I love to do, and this is really critical, especially with the leadership team, is starting with what I call one version of the truth. Get those goals solved and finalized with your customers. Then bring your customers in goal by goal. You can bring them into groups and ask them, for each of these goals, was the experience frequently unreliable, just tough to deal with? Was it an it depends experience? It depended on the person or the day or the hour or the product or the channel, or is it always reliable? And ask your customer to put a circle or a dot where you are in delivering from a one company standpoint. Now, I know in service businesses, often we say, but we're great when the bad stuff happens because we do a body slam, we take the hill. Well, you know what that is? That is just situational support. What you need is institutional support, where it's not about the body slam, where you exhaust your people, you exhaust your customer, and they don't know if they're going to get somebody who can help them or not. I'm dealing with that a lot these days. So this is an example of a company we worked with, and what we really did was make me smarter. This is an insurance company, a B2C insurance company. So their goal map was make me smarter. I call this no strings attached giving. And you should have that too in your business. Are you delivering information based on whatever your area of expertise is that your customer can get from you, whether they buy something or not? Guide me to the best path for this time in my life. This is the selling experience, but the customer doesn't care about that. They care about being guided. You know, what we know is over 75% of people who buy insurance don't know what they bought. In insurance, it's also prepare me to understand and use the stuff that I just bought. Deliver, guide me constantly after the purchase. So it's not just about the sale and retention and upsell and cross-sell. You'll notice upsell, cross-sell isn't on the goal map. You will earn it if you do these things and if you partner with me. So I want to go back. So what will happen when you do this with your customers is you'll see where you are. Because again, also the other thing that happens is as we present to our leaders, we present those wonderful red, yellow, and green dots based on the SKUs or the KPIs by silo. The customer doesn't care about the silo. What they're going to grade you on is how much you're united in delivering that experience by goal. I also encourage you to do this with your organization before you talk to customers and compare the two. A lot of times you'll accidentally also give yourself a false positive because you know, we were working with a $70 billion software company, and the senior vice president of marketing said, we are really great at marketing because our customers go on our website, they're on there for over 40 minutes, and they download a lot of articles. But excuse me, I snort right now. But when we talk to their customers, what their customers said was, I'm on your site so much because your site's organized by product, not by my goal or my mission. And same reason why I download so many articles, because you haven't organized them for what I need. So while that SVP of marketing gave himself a green dot, the customers gave him a red one. So we need to start with one version of the truth so that everybody's on the same page, and you need to check your ego and your silo pride at the door, because this isn't about what we're doing separately, it's about how united we are. So this is about aligning those KPIs to customer goals, knowing the early warning signals. The most important thing, and the reason why customers love companies, is if you get out before things start going south and rescue them. And then finally, be proactive, proactively act. This last competency, I call it the prove it to me competency, because this is about proving to your people that this isn't just something that you're going to talk about one more time. This has got to be about enabling them goal by goal to deliver value. And a lot of times we find that we get in the way of our people. For example, lots of companies I've worked with, they say we're so customer focused, but they send their salespeople on so many milk runs, they can't possibly have the guiding conversations that they expect or that customers need. And they compensate them, for example, only on getting the sale versus the growth of the customer. So they send the signal of the revolving door is okay, it doesn't matter. And they also, for example, make them toggle between 100 things, or don't give them the ability to make the call by knowing the asset of the customer and offering things. So this is really about also killing rules that get in the way of your people doing their best work. This was started by a banker many, many years ago, but lots of people do this now. My client, Dan Pasterek, who was the chief customer officer at EnerSource, an energy company in Canada, started this because we call this kill the stupid rules, because a young man who was putting up telephone poles had a work order, and it said, put this pole 5 feet in front of Mrs. Smith's front window. Now they could have, through eminent domain and all of the government rigmarole that allowed them to, but he went back and said, I'm not going to do this. And so this takes what I call leadership bravery. If you're going to do this kind of thing, you need to be open to your people telling you what doesn't make sense. You need to not make it punitive. You need to change some things and then celebrate it, because I call this marketing hope. Your people need to believe that this is real and that you're focused. The next thing that's really important is taking the customer off the spreadsheet, and on a monthly, quarterly, and before you do your annual planning, walk the customer's life. This is something that we started 1 million years ago at Land's End when I was in the cornfields of Wisconsin, helping Land's End to grow their business. And we noticed everything we sent out depended on the product category, the packaging, the buyer, and what we knew was we needed to unite. And so we built a war room. You can do this virtually now. And what this visually does is it will walk you through the life of your customer. So you focus, but that you focus in a united way. So here's how it goes. First, put up your customer loss and gains so you know your net customer asset growth. As a result of the experience we delivered, all of us, this isn't a sales number, this last month or quarter or year, did we earn the right to grow? Now, goal by goal, how are we doing? Put up the spaghetti bowl of how hard it is to go get something done. Show the listening, but start with the information. In this goal, here's what customers had to encounter. Here's all of the 20 different process steps. Here's what we heard in the verbatim comments. We sent you out to do it. What did you experience? And then finally, here were the scores we got. Save the scores for the end. So it's not about the score, but about the experience and what that earned. And the other thing that this does is it unites you to focus. Typically what will happen is if everybody's just cherry picking the dashboard is you'll have 100 projects that come out of this. When you aggregate it, yes, you may have 10 things you circle, but you can focus as a leadership team and say, we've circled 10 things, we can focus on one. How are we going to bring a team together? Then on every monthly consecutive meeting, you bring those teams in, shine a spot on them and see how they're doing. And it becomes what I call a virtuous cycle of prosperity. You change the language of your organization. You start talking about customer goals. You glue your people together and your customer notices the difference because you're focused and their goals are what you're working on improving. So this final competency is accountability to customers' goals. It's about proving the commitment to your people by enabling them to deliver value. And it's about uniting your language. You know, there's nothing that drives your people more crazy than every silo leader, every leader inside your business using different language or seeming to have different agendas. So to summarize, these 5 competencies build you an engine for growth, but most importantly, give you a platform for the storytelling and accountability. As a result of the experience we all delivered, did we earn the right to growth? Let's now go customer goal by goal and understand where we're doing well, where we've dropped the ball by aggregating how we're listening. Let's focus and understand before customers tell us those issues so we can get out in front of them. And let's remove the tension and the issues and the challenges that make it hard for our people to deliver value. Use these 5 competencies to tell the story of your customers' lives, to earn the right to customer-driven growth. That's all my information. If you'd like to reach out to me, I have lots of resources, but I'm going to stop sharing so we can go to some questions.
Yeah, just taking myself off mute here. So yeah, thank you so much, Jeanne. We actually got a great question here, I think, because I think this is something that all businesses have a concern about, which is Sheila asks, how do we survey our clients without amplifying their dissatisfaction? In particular, I'm concerned we may be unable to change the things they're unhappy with about how they work with us.
Well, Sheila, instead of just looking at surveying, I would do these customer sessions I've been talking about, bring 10 or 15 customers together and talk about what's important to them. Build your version of a goal map. And when you co-create that with them, it's going to be less about you and them, you versus them or them versus you, and more about understanding. The other thing that you might think about is when you do a survey, don't make it be something that is, you know, all or nothing. One of the ways to do a survey, if you've got to do surveys, is you say to the customer, how important is this thing? You ask them the priority on the left. And on the right, the question's in the middle. On the right, you say, how well are we doing on this thing? What that does then for you as a leadership team is it lets you build a priority matrix of the high priority, low performance things, or the low priority things that you don't need to focus on it much. And it gives you perspective. But I can't suggest enough this notion of building a bond with your customers by starting to have these 10 to 15 client conversations, but don't do it alone. You need to rotate in your leaders in the organization and have that fearless listening, because your customers will be blown away that you took the time to listen to them.
Yeah, so, you know, one of the things that actually resonated with me is when you were talking about like earning,
Yeah.
you know, that business and having that relationship, because that's something I've done in my personal life where, or my my career, we've really focused on earning that. And one of the interesting things about that is you often earn the benefit of the doubt. I mean, has that been your experience where people will give a company a lot more leeway because you've earned that trust with them? And yeah, they might not be satisfied completely, but they do trust you as a, you know, as a person perhaps, or as a company.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you get a halo effect. And what I want, what's important, you just said as a person, is people are attributing human characteristics to you as a company based on how you're behaving. Are you kind? Are you trusting? Not just John who answers the phone, but as an organization, how are you being defined based on how you're behaving? So when you are a great company and people love you and you've proven, when you drop the ball, they're going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I love this example that Colleen Barrett, the ex-CEO, she retired CEO of Southwest Airlines, said to me, which was when the Twin Towers were hit on 9/11, they had thousands of customers send in their love bucks or their coupons that they had been sent from Southwest because they wanted to keep them flying. When you build, you have not only a halo effect, but you have an invested relationship with your customers because your success is just as important as their success.
Yeah. So asked a question just basically around like, what are some of the biggest challenges of really, I guess, changing the mindset of a company to really be so much more customer centric when they haven't maybe traditionally been in the past?
Well, the first thing, and in that book, Chief Customer Officer, this is all outlined in that, and I just say that not to sell books, but that I couldn't cover all of it, is uniting the leadership team. If that leadership team is not united, the fracturing will constantly get in your way.
Yep. And
Jeanne, I'll just an extension to that. The leadership team of a lot of MSPs is the business owner. And then they look to their right and left, and there's no one there. There's just them as the leadership team. So in that sense of uniting, what would you say in that context when it's really just the CEO?
Well, then unite everybody else. Then your job is to and thank you for that. I'm not trying to be only about big companies, but whether if it's you and a group of people helping you grow the business, then bring everybody together and everyone's in it, and you need to really be connected in that way.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to jump in because I've got a quick question. And firstly, thank you, Jeanne. That was awesome. And quite frankly, I was sort of buzzing listening to this because obviously I'm passionate about it. But when I say I'm buzzing, it's because of me being an MSP, right? And it's because because I'm not technical, and for those listening, obviously I said it before, I'm not a super technical MSP owner. I have always thought from customer backwards as opposed to me forward. Right. And so one of the things, Jeanne, if you didn't know, which you probably don't, is that in the MSP community, there's a lot of chat about their tools. What RMM are you using, which is a monitoring thing? What database are you using? A PSA, blah, blah, blah. There's endless debate about the inside tool set. And it always feels to me, observing the industry, that largely speaking, there's this feeling like if I get my tool set right, I'm going to deliver this amazing customer experience. But I would challenge those, and I do have a question, but I'll say this for the audience as well. Have a think about your onboarding. Yeah. Your onboarding of a customer, right? Like, have you nailed that? Like, for example, my MSP has a book that gets branded with their logo and everything, like not a book, like a little presentation that we sit in there with them and we go page by page and we give them that warm and fuzzy feeling about all the things that are going to happen and how we're going to do it. And we're going to check in. I think we could do a lot more there. We definitely haven't done what Jeanne is talking about in terms of mapping that journey and sitting with customers and getting them in a room. That's why I was buzzing, because I was like, oh man, I've missed a whole lot of stuff as well.
Well, and that doesn't even cost anything. There's no cost to that at all. Yeah.
Correct. So what's for those in the room, that's just not a natural thing to think customer first backwards. What's the implications if you don't for a small business? Like, what have you seen when they get it wrong and get it right? You've given us some great examples, but what happens when you just don't think that way? And bearing in mind, as the last comment, we are literally customer services businesses in technology. Like, that is we're not technology businesses. Like, our only purpose in life is to deliver a customer service. So,
Well, first of all, as an owner, if you're a small business, your life is going to be reacting constantly. You're going to be firefighting all the time. It will never go away. Are you okay, Jamie?
yeah, I was just sorry. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, so you're cycle of how you do your work, right? It's just constantly going to be reacting, and that will prevent you from doing the next greater thing and growing and be innovative. I think that to me is the biggest implication, is that you'll never be able to really expand from where you are, because you're going to stay in the rut of firefighting.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because someone's actually, that was why I was looking to my left, there's a monitor there.
No,
I was reading the question that they said, and Kevin Schneider asked the question, like, Jamie, he was talking about referrals and how do you get more customer experience at scale to every user is how you get more referrals. And I think that's to your point, is it not?
Yeah, no, I mean, that whole "it depends" experience is what defines all of our lives, right? You know, I mean, and the other thing is, if you're not delivering a good experience, it costs you more, because your customer will hang up and call back or ask for more. And that's the other thing, the cost of not doing it right the first time, especially to a small business, is like 10 times higher than to a bigger business, because it's not just your sweat equity, it's your lost revenue. And, you know, in the world of small businesses, people tend to know each other more, right? It's more viral in terms of the communication.
Oh, look, I absolutely agree. And just the way I interpret that for an MSP, you've got it. So we do IT support, and we've got, let's say we have 25 clients, but each client has, I better pick some maths I can do here. Let's say they have 20 staff each. So whatever that is, so 500 users you're managing. And that's 500 people that are going to have an experience of your service. That's 1,000, that's 2,000, however many you're managing, they are the ones that are having an emotional experience. What was the term you used? It's a human, they're assigning a human character to the experience. And that is where I genuinely think, to answer the question before, is that if it's at a user level, you need to deliver awesomeness. Now, a lot of people just focus on the main contact, which obviously you need to do because they pay the bills of your client. But the users, so the staff of those companies, are the ones that go from, you know, let's say accounting firm 1, and then they get a job at accounting firm 2, and then they go there and they have another experience of IT support. And then they look at that, and if yours was exemplary in every way, through technology you're using from a customer experience or just overall experience, and then they go to the next one, they're obviously going to put their hand up and go, well, where I was before, like, they had this awesome IT support company. So don't underestimate the referability of users. Like, they're the ones that float around. What are your thoughts, Jeanne?
You want to be a company that people keep as they move from place to place. I also, excuse me, when we do customer sessions, one of the things that you want to do is different sessions based on the user. For example, when we did this work with, I'll just give you a non-tech, GlaxoSmithKline, we had sessions with doctors separate from office managers and nurse practitioners, because they used the product, the instructions, very differently. One was a decision maker and wrote the check, but the others were the key influencers. Like you said, they're going to go to different places, and they're going to be the ones who will drive your growth more in many ways, because they'll remember if you help their life.
Yeah, and here's an example for you guys, is that my MSP is called eNerds. Now, a lot of people would go, yeah, that sort of denotes something, or maybe I did that when I was 22, because I thought, well, every other IT support company at the time was called like Compu Global Tech, and, you know, these words that just sound very techy but aren't memorable in that sense. You get confused. So I thought, well, let's have a name that's memorable, and that's what we settled on. Now, after that, of course, you had all these home usery type businesses like Geeks to You and Tech Squad and whatever, they all came out. So I worried that because we were focused on SMB, we're talking 20 to 100 staff businesses, not home, not small, proper companies doing great things. And I worried for a little bit around the name and whether or not that would affect how they perceive our service and standards. And, you know, would a 100-seat law firm all suited up go for a company called eNerds? And what I realized was, customer experience wise, is that it's not a name. We all know that brand is not a name, but it is that overall experience. Because I would turn up fully suited out to go and see a law firm, and I would have a schmick proposal, and I would talk the talk, and I would talk their language. And I always realized that you have to mirror who you're selling to. So you wouldn't probably fully suit up if you're going to see a non-profit or a manufacturing where they're just standing around in jeans and whatever. But you dress to the audience. And I found that when you do that, it's that overall experience that you're providing that and the feeling they get. And I've realized over time, there's, you know, when people consider changing their brand, I'll never change eNerds brand, because I feel like we've built this trust and this feeling of what you talked about. I'll say it again, this human character. Like, there's just something about eNerds, and I have to say, I feel like that's the thing that helps us grow. Like, there's just something about it, and you need to think about that. What are your thoughts, Jeanne? Like, just overall, as maybe a final, I'm not sure where we are on time, Matt, but certainly as an overall comment about that feeling when they're going to pitch for business and they're presenting themselves. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say here in terms of that feeling, but there's definitely something there for eNerds, and it works really well for us.
Yeah, no, it's critical. I mean, back at Land's End, we always said, if we were a person, how would we want to be defined? But it's not enough to say we want to be trusting. If you want to say you want to be trusted, that means you've got to read all your contracts and your fine print. You've got to rethink your policies. You've got to see if you're trusting your people, so your customer feels you're trusting them when they're on the line with them. Are they able to make the call? So you've got to live the attribute. If you're not living the attribute, or put your money where your mantra is, I always like to say, if you're not living the attribute, your attribute is just a bunch of great stuff on a piece of paper. And customers feel it. And especially coming out of COVID, what we're seeing is customers will keep the people who show up in a very human and real way.
Yeah, so I think we have one other question from the audience. Maybe we can close. Keith asks, we focus on exceptional experience based on the Disney magic model versus the standard superhero mentality of most tech people. How do you balance service with technical showing off?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the whole reason. Good question. That was the whole reason why I talked about reliability. It's not about heroics. You know, a lot of times in tech, it's about the heroic of who can take the hill, who can do the body slam. This has got to be about getting rid of the reason for heroics. That's why I use the word reliability. It doesn't sound very sexy, but your customers need you to be there and be reliable, so there's no need for heroics. You know, and it's not about taking anything away from the tech person, but putting them in a position to innovate instead of exhausting on being a hero.
Spot on. Yeah, that's great advice. So I don't know, Jamie, if you have anything else on your end. Otherwise, I guess we would then move on to the next session.
Just to say thank you, Jeanne. That was really amazing, and I think the content is definitely something that this industry doesn't get to hear a lot about, and I know it'll get. I think the biggest thing probably will happen is a mind shift potentially. There's a lot of stuff that you've provided there that they'll have to, you know, if they want to go down that road, they have to start executing a few things there, but it has to start with a change of mindset first. Put that customer first. How do I, you know, the whole journey of an experience that we provide as MSP. So very grateful for your time today, and wish you well.
My pleasure. All the best to all of you. I saw there were a couple requests for the slides. I'll PDF them for you. So, and you can send them over to everybody. Okay, everybody, stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jeanne. All right, so I think we're gonna now transition to, I think, one of those very appealing things, because not often we get a bunch of MSPs talking on a roundtable discussion, and I get the opportunity to moderate for it. But we're gonna bring in, and it's pretty neat because we've got MSPs really representing, I think, North America, Europe, and Australia. So I think we've got a pretty good coverage of the world here, Jamie.
No, we do. So we'll get Ralph, Terry, and Tony to jump on with the video if you can, and we'll get started with the panel. We've done a few of these in the past, and they've always gone down really well. Again, there's not a lot of times you get to just genuinely sit and listen to other MSPs, hear their experiences, and and it usually goes down well. Not most of the time you get a panel at an event, it tends to be like the vendor leaders or industry kind of thought leaders, but not specifically the people in the thick of it trying to do it. So with that ado, I'll let you moderate this one, Matt.
Absolutely. So I think if you hit the next slide, we're gonna talk about our first topic here, which is sorry, it's a little slow for me. There we go. There you go. Is around biggest lessons. It's tell us about the biggest lessons learned this past year for your MSP, which was an incredibly challenging year for everybody, but there was tons of opportunity. Lots of MSPs reacted in different ways, and I think Ralph, we're going to allow you to introduce yourself and talk about some of the biggest changes you had.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate you guys inviting me out to represent my organization. I'm the director of managed services at a large organization called Center Technologies in Texas. And the question was about the biggest lessons learned over the past year. I think COVID changed everybody, right? It changed the way we do business. It changed the way that we approached opportunities, changed the way that we sold our services. But we knew and understood that we had to innovate. And not only did you have to innovate, but you have to demonstrate innovation in order to continue to grow your business and provide support. Right now, we've transitioned to a very largely remote workforce during that time. So that also was, how do we quickly put solutions in place? How do we do these things quickly? And that's not only for existing clients, but also make sure that your services are available to new clients that are looking for those services that you're offering. Additionally, never stop selling or building, right? It's those kind of things that continue to help push you through those periods. Many organizations weren't as successful, right? They didn't have that plan. They didn't have those sales cycles that helped them push through those challenging times. We saw a record number call volumes and things of that nature during the pandemic, especially early on. It was pretty intense, but it helped us continue to stay relevant. Because that is what the differentiator was between us and our competitors, right? Our ability to continue to innovate and during the pandemic. So,
excellent. And next up, we've got Terry Moon, who's we'd love to have you introduce yourself so the audience knows a little bit about you and biggest lessons learned. And Terry, you're on mute. So.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks for having me. I'm Terry Moon with Computer Pro. We're in Saginaw, Michigan. Unlike these guys, we're, I guess, a bit newer of an MSP. So I'm extremely grateful to be here listening to these giants basically in the industry, which is awesome and amazing. And we're primarily known, I guess, for our cabling. So the biggest lesson learned really hit this past couple of years, and it's something that's kind of an oddball, I guess, but that's inventory. For us, keeping adequate inventory has saved us, I can't even count tons and tons of money. Because with the supply chain issues that we're seeing now, we do so many cabling and rack installs, and we kept a decent amount of things like routers, switches, access points, racks, and so forth. If we didn't keep that inventory on hand and relied on fast shipping, because I think some of us get spoiled almost with Amazon and vendors having 1 day and 2 day shipping, and in the IT space, you don't really want to keep a lot of hardware, right? And because we were able to float through this supply chain issue and keep our projects going. If we did rely on fast shipping and we didn't have that, we'd have some major issues on our project side.
Got it. Interesting. And Derek says $5. Terry says something about Milwaukee, but you didn't.
I was tempted.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Terry, for joining us. And next up, we've got Tony, who's joining us in from, I believe, in London. So it's probably 7:30 or so in the evening there. So we appreciate you joining, Tony.
Yeah, it's nearly 20 to 8. Listen, thanks very much for having us on board. It's a pleasure to be able to share what we do over in the UK to many other MSPs globally. And I think from what we've learned in the past 18 months or so, certainly through the COVID transition, is how we can help our customers better collaborate, not only with us, but with themselves as well. As users go out and start working remotely, how do we get those guys interacting in a more succinct way? I think the other focus for us is how we can add real value in the verticals that we do very well at. We've seen, we're quite fortunate in that we work within the logistics industry. Primarily, we've got a lot of customers within the logistics industry. And of course, whilst logistics has been a problem, certainly it's played into our hands, Brexit, in some respects, because we've had many people starting to try and stockpile product in the UK. We've seen our customers build out extra warehouses. That's brought on Wi-Fi projects and cabling projects and scaling up. I think the other major lesson we've learned through COVID is really about focusing on our cash flow, making sure that we're protecting our cash flow as our customers can rise and fall. We were fortunate in that we had a couple of customers that went by the wayside through COVID, that went out of business. We're very small micro customers, so that didn't hit us too much. But there were also other customers that needed our services. We host a data center in the UK where we do ISaaS services out of. We found that some of those customers that were looking at coming into infrastructure as a service prior to the pandemic, they hadn't quite made that decision. As soon as the pandemic came and they had to get everybody at home working, our flat decision was, look, let's bring them in. Let's not change anything for them, but let's bring them into the hosted services, let them work effectively remotely, collaborating together. Everybody's got access to everything they need in a very, very slick way that enabled their businesses to continue to function through the COVID pandemic. And that's paid dividends coming out the other side of it, definitely.
Excellent. And thank you again for joining us in the evening there. And last but not least, we've got Jamie himself again.
Yeah, well, just putting my MSP hat on for this one, obviously. Look, the great comments there from everybody, and it threw up a lot of different things for all of us. I feel quite aligned with a lot of the things that they talked about. Even the stock, the stock side of things that Terry was mentioning was just so important. But I guess the thing that we learned was it's really that relationship piece. We felt like, oh gosh, there were a couple of clients that were struggling through COVID, and we had to be flexible in the way that we went about dealing with their problems. So we had to give COVID relief to people, but we made sure, rather than just, oh great, we'll give you a discount, we said, all right, we'll put you on a COVID relief, which will end when it ends, and we had to do that. But I think the biggest thing that we were aware of, I guess, going into it, we went, okay, we just don't want to churn. So we probably, like Ralph was saying, we wanted to focus on sales and growth and those sorts of things, but obviously it was pretty tricky. We kept our ads on, we kept all that sort of stuff, but what we thought we needed to do was really get out there and have lots of conversations. Now, you were sort of forced to do that because of everybody, transitioning to work from home, even though most companies have obviously some remote capability set up. It generally wasn't the case for everyone in the team to do that, right? So there was it was busy for all of us at the start of COVID, but over that year and this last year and a half, we just went deep with customers and having meaningful conversations with them, more than we probably, even though we espoused that, we just went a little harder in that area. So that was probably the main thing that we focused on and learned, and it really worked in the sense that they felt really supported. And interestingly, those MSPs that didn't do a good job during that period, there was definitely, once for Australia, it sort of all aligned itself to the lockdowns being lifted and those sorts of things. I guess the lesson there is that if you didn't do a good job, they came our way. So we got quite a few of the new business opportunities where they just said, they didn't change during COVID because it was too hard, and why would you? But as soon as it all started to die off a little bit, some of the new business we signed up was because they literally just were let down during that period. So, lesson was that we made the right decision, which is pleasing, to focus on the customer. And I guess the other lesson is if you didn't, then you probably got hurt by that. So yeah, fascinating year and a half is probably the biggest challenge for all of us. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I think, Jamie, we're going to switch gears a little bit onto kind of the innovation side, because as all of you outlined, there was so many changes that were happening in the industry, and everybody was really having to change on the fly. And around innovation, it's how have you used innovation in your MSP to cope with COVID-19? And Tony, maybe I'll go to you to kick things off there.
Yeah, sure. So we were fairly fortunate in that we'd had a number of fairly large investments within the data center environment, with a plan just prior to COVID for launching our infrastructure as a service offering. And of course, that was largely in part a sort of good fortune, I think. But it also enabled us to capitalize on it and capitalize on that innovation whilst the pandemic was taking place. And of course, that enabled us to continue the growth through the pandemic, which was phenomenal for us, really. I think also we've looked at how we better communicate to our customers. And I certainly know this is what brought us to Jamie in the first place. How do we stem the calls that are coming in, yet communicate effectively? How do we notify people instantly? And some of the tools, no doubt, that Jamie will discuss later, have really enabled us to do that in a much, much better way than picking up the phone and listening to people, moan about problems that they've got going on, when we can be a bit more proactive in saying, look, we've got this issue going on and we know about it, don't raise it with us, we're working on it, that sort of thing. And I think there were just a few tools that we picked up along the way, least not of which, as I say, Jamie's Invarosoft product enabled us to be able to communicate with. It certainly has raised the expectations from the client in terms of our levels of communication, definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah, communication is such a critical thing. No one can sit back and just not communicate out of worry that if you communicate with a customer that they're going to bring up something that you don't want. People, I know I spoke with MSPs who lost clients because they weren't. Period. Terry, I'll go to you next. I know it sounded like you said you were pretty fortunate in terms of having the inventory and things like that, but what are some ways you were able to use innovation during this period?
Boy, as far as innovation, I'd say, two main things. So one is we house our own Screen Connect server in addition to some pretty robust RMM remote tools and so forth. So we have a lot of great ways to support our clients remotely that helped a tremendous amount. And actually with Invarosoft, we were able to upload, I'd say, relevant information to the client portal. So things like, that basically how-to articles and so forth that answered questions that clients might have. Things like how to use the VoIP app on their cell phone, how to set up their work phone at their house, how to access files remotely, and so forth. So I'd say really the client portal in Invarosoft and our pretty robust remote support options that we have been our best allies for the pandemic thing.
Great. And Ralph, love to hear your thoughts on how innovations helped you cope with COVID-19.
Well, it kind of starts with having relevant technology solutions that we can implement and scale quickly. And as an organization, we were well prepared to handle it, although it was a lot of work, really, really fast and really, kind of tough to pivot towards, different types of solutions quickly, depending on the client, their environment, and those kinds of things. But we were able to take that challenge on pretty quickly. And still going through it, right? It's even though we've gone through, kind of the initial phase of it, we're kind of still going through it. And organizations are still making those transitions and putting those transitions around technology. And we're continuing to innovate. the technology, the types of solutions. We have an internal committee that helps us make those technology decisions as well. Additionally, and this is kind of more so on the how do we use innovation as an MSP, especially to cope through that. One way was we chose to innovate using Invarosoft, right? We wanted to identify a way to demonstrate innovation and creativity, and identify a good way to differentiate ourselves from the others, right? Invarosoft is feature rich for us. It allowed the branding, which was great, white label in all aspects. And then the features, push notifications, things like that, those things were a demonstration of innovation, not only for clients we were going into, but for future clients, or our existing clients. So that was huge for us to really continue to, again, like I said initially, stay relevant, but also demonstrate innovation, especially at a time like that when technology and solutions were necessary. We were able to leverage a lot of those features to reach out to our customers and clients, get notifications and communications out quickly. So very good there. Additionally, we actually have an innovation team within our organization where we take recommendations and get recommendations over to them when we run into various challenges within our existing customer client base. And even as we go through the onboarding process, the things are identified that could be potentially address some of their challenges, right? We get it over to the innovation team, and then they work to identify solutions and get proposals out there so we can have start having conversations or discussions around implementing those types of solutions. So
yeah, no, thank you for that answer. Jamie, I mean, I assume you use your own innovation, your own product.
Oh, yeah,
but,
of course. Well, I'll bearing in mind that that's probably a gimme answer that I would say, but and thank you for that. And it really is, the customer facing side is important. A couple of examples I'll give though are a wee bit different. And that is, firstly, the use of teams internally. So our MSP is around 50 staff now. And we have people, well, obviously with COVID, they were remote for the most part. And what we did, and what we probably should have always done, was to start having to connect staff together. So we realized that if we can't be together, we need to at least keep the conversation going, keep that community going. So we created a concept which I think I copied from somewhere else, a town hall concept. So every couple of weeks we would have a town hall, the entire company, to basically from wherever you were, come in, listen to management talk, ask questions, answer questions and that type of thing. And that connectedness using the technology of Teams really helped. People were worried about like what was going to happen through COVID for the business, and they wanted to hear from leadership. They wanted to understand, what are we going to do? How's the company going? Like, are we fine? Like, is there an issue, with the job and all that sort of stuff? Because some of the regions, like we have a knock and a back office in that sense. Well, it's not back office. It is part of our team is in Sri Lanka, and they don't know what's going on with Australia. They don't know what's going on with clients and those sorts of things specifically as an economy. So that was really using Teams in that way to do town halls. It could have been Zoom. We were using Teams. Was really interesting. And something else that we've done through innovation and started it prior to COVID, but we really continued it, is that some of our team just couldn't be at every meeting. And so what we started to do, whereby the sales person that you saw his face before, Sam, would go out to a meeting potentially, or it could be one of the account managers, and they'd bring virtual team member to the meeting by plonking a Surface or whatever tablet they've got, and then basically connecting the person in through video conferencing as well. And we're going to continue doing that because it just is more efficient, where senior technical resources may not just, when you think of travel time to go and see a client and all that sort of stuff, if it's a general account management meeting, bringing in someone virtually to plonk them on the table, even though they may not be able to see everything specifically, but I just thought that was such a good idea. It wasn't my idea; it was one of the team members' idea, and it's worked really well for us. So there's a couple of ideas of just staying connected. You still may have a lot of people working from home, so just keep that conversation going with them, and having those opportunities to kind of have little huddles. That's worked really well for us through COVID.
Yeah, it was interesting. My own experience. I was on the vendor side, but it's no different really in the sense of like I actually got to know some of my colleagues better virtual environment than I did when we were in the same office. It's a very bizarre thing around this. And I mean, it's like we've gone through stages of evolution with this. I mean, you remember like when it was actually fun to go to a virtual happy hour. You probably have to pay somebody to get me to go to one of those now, but like, it's just really changed quite a bit. But moving into really the star of the show, the star topic that we're all here to talk about, which is customer experience. And why is CX, customer experience, important to focus on as an MSP? And Ralph, I'll let you kick things off on this one.
Excellent. So the customer experience, if you guys haven't learned or newsflash, right? We are a service organization, right? We have to focus on getting better at providing those services. As an MSP, soft skills, right? Those people that are engaging and having those interactions with the customers or the clients, right? That communication piece. Are we getting our updates out there? Are we getting information in front of the right resources? Ticket updates, status updates, things of that nature. Reaching out. All of those things kind of make up the customer experience, and then how would those processes and procedures look like. And on the flip side of that, it's that consistency. Are we doing it consistently as an organization? Oh, it's just this team and not that team, or it's this person and not that person, right? It's building that consistency and ensuring that regardless of where you are and what your role is in the organization, right? We're all held to the same standard of service excellence. Right, so you start there at the service excellence, whether you're tier 1, tier 2, you're an engineer, solutions architect, right? That service excellence is the one thing that we focus on trying not to deviate from, right? And the expectation there is that it's across the entire organization. But we also have a CX team, and they focus on the service delivery aspects of our products and our services and all the solutions that we provide. They are a critical part of the organization and the continued success of the organization, especially through our high touch clients, right? They focus on developing and putting together cadence calls for these customers and clients, working through their various challenges and things of that nature. And they involve everyone across the organization to ensure the success of the services we are delivering. So they are a huge part of the continued success and growth of the organization.
Ralph, I'll jump in there and just ask you, mate, what's the background of those success team? Like what type of, obviously, so Ralph, if you don't know, I mean, Sensor Technologies is I think 150, 180 staff. So it's quite a big MSP. I don't know what that feels like either to be in an MSP that big. And are these people from a customer experience background, or are they sort of MSP industry, like engineering type people, salespeople? Like what sort of background do they have? And yeah, just fascinated to understand.
I can just give you a little bit. So I know that the director of the team comes from the restaurant industry, right? The service industry. And one of the other members of the team came from, they actually owned their own MSP before. So, right, but it's not sales oriented, right? So we don't have salespeople that are part of the CX or that customer experience team, right? Because I think I think that when you come from a sales role, that kind of mentality or mindset from a sales experience kind of takes away from what we're focusing on trying to accomplish, right? We're not here to sell you anything. We're here to make things right. Right, and that's the approach they have. Hey, listen, we're here to provide these services, and we're here to do a great job at it.
Well, I'll just ask another quick question on that.
Mm-hmm.
Where have you made, like, tell us where that team, well, the company has made a mistake around customer experience, and what did you do to actually fix it? Like, tell us a war story about where you kind of stuffed it up a bit, and then what you learned from it, and what did you do to fix it?
Wow, I feel like I'm that.
We might have to come back to you, but
Yeah.
if you got anything that comes to mind.
Well, I don't have anyone in particular, but I don't. Not to say that we haven't had our challenges, whether that's with the CX organization or with the service team collectively or as a whole.
Well, I'll give you an example on our end. For example,
Okay.
is our onboarding back in the day was pretty loose. Like we would just, yeah. I mean, like other than the only thing I think that went through our minds was, cool, we'll go out and set up all the monitoring and get them ready, go and do the audit. But there wasn't really a structured process. I think we may have had just one meeting to go and say, hey, well, this is us, and we didn't really have any sort of presentation or anything like that. So, and what we found is that when you're a bit loose around, you don't have anyone dedicated to it. So if, for example, our sales and advisory person was out, I think he used to go out and try and onboard. Well, what happens in an onboarding is that they come back and go, oh, but you might yourself notice there's a few niggles, and the client will ask, well, we need this, 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 and this, and this, and this. They're all like little 1%ers. And then someone then's got to go away and actually do all of that. And half the stuff that they've asked you to do has nothing to do with a technical thing. It's just like, need a quote for that, or can you arrange this, or we're moving this desktop over here and it needs to be project managed. So we realized that we needed to have a dedicated team around just onboarding, even if it was just one person dedicated to it, and then have a process and procedure around it. And even to this day, if that person who is dedicated to it has a wee bit of a stuff up and the customer asks for 5 things and they never get back to them, I mean, boy, that's an example of just that simple thing of onboarding the customer. It's all about customer experience. And if your process is a bit weak, you can get found out. So did you have any sort of scenarios like that happen?
So I guess one thing that does come to mind a bit is that as an organization, we would just go to market with products, right? It's just get out there. Now we have to support it, right? So which wasn't always the best way or best way to kind of go about, that delivery piece, right? Okay, we have this new product, now let's go deliver it. And then you turn around and say, okay, wow, how do we support it? How do we monitor it, right? So, so now we have a product delivery process, right? Product development process, where all of our solutions go through this product development process before it goes out, so we can ensure that we go through that lessons learned, we identify those solutions, we go through all those best practices, and we get all of that out of the way first. And then now it's time, okay, now we have the solution that's fully baked, embedded, now we can go to market with it, versus it being a go, 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 go situation. So let me see here. Actually, so joining us as well today on this particular summit is our director of the customer experience team as well. So she heard that this was going on. She's like, I absolutely must be there. So
great. Well, yeah, that was a lot of great feedback. Tony, why is customer experience important? For obviously your own MSP and MSPs in general.
Yeah, I think as an MSP, when we go out and sell our MSP services, certainly to an unknown entity, what you're selling is trust, and they have to trust you more than they trust their existing MSP. And that in part comes from having the empathy to understand what their real issues are, and derive solutions around that. And of course, that's a continual process, because although you might fix one thing one day or one area of their problems one day, they're going to have other issues as they move forward. You've got to stay engaged with the customer at both a high level and at the ground level to be able to understand what the deep-rooted issues and be a bit more proactive in trying to resolve them. I think that's a sort of key takeaway for me in terms of why it's so important that customer experience is a good one. And how we do that is simply by empathizing with their current situations. We've all been in a situation where we've had a poor experience with a company. You learn from those, and you don't want to be part of that.
Absolutely. And Terry, how about yourself?
Oh, why is CX important? For us, it's been two things. Okay, so it's obviously a huge time saver, and it wound up being an awesome sales tool. Okay, so as far as a time saver, we used to get support requests all over the place, right? We get phone calls, we get email, someone use Facebook, someone find us on Instagram or website, all over the place. So Invarosoft, it makes it a time saver because it funnels all those into one place. And that one place happens to be right in the PSA. So how do you beat that, right? It also lets us guide them. So when they submit service requests using things like forms and so forth, we can guide them to have them worded and shown to our staff the way that we want to see them, basically. And one of the most amazing things is using that system, you can help them resolve issues without having to submit a request. And that's awesome, you know, and I think that's where a lot of the ROI factors in. And as far as sales, it's a great sales tool because it gives you, you know, obviously like the other folks were saying, it gives you something unique to offer that most other places don't have. Because when you look at MSP sales, like they were saying, we all have similar offerings, right? We have things like AV, monitoring, backup, security solutions. So we basically use the same things, just different vendors. But these don't really separate us from everybody else. From the client's perspective, I think they see it like Chevy versus Ford, right? They don't know which brand of AV is best or anything like that. But with the CX software, like Invarosoft, you have something unique, something that the clients can actually see and use. So it's kind of that purple cow that Jamie mentioned. And then with us giving them their own client portal with training and self-help options and all those kind of things, it has immediate value that they can see. So it really, really separates us out. Gives us a lot more confidence for sales also, because we have that magic thing that the others don't. And then as added bonus, obviously it saves us time, because the more information we can put in the client portal, that translates to less phone calls and emails and so forth. So
Yeah, and I think that's a really overlooked aspect. I think when people think of customer experience, it's not just the customer experience that you're providing to your end user and making them more efficient. You're making yourself more efficient. So it's two-sided. And Terry, I think you hit on a really important topic, which is differentiation. I came from a space of selling dark web monitoring, and we were the first dark web monitoring company in the channel at the time. And I remember talking to MSPs very early on. I said, now is the time to do this, because so many things get commoditized at some point as you get mass adoption. But now it was the time to do this, because you're going to be out there and you're going to be speaking about something that no one's really talking about. And I think that just hits the nail on the head. Is very few MSPs are talking about customer experience with a prospect, and so I think that's something that's going to really stand out when they're evaluating 2 or 3 MSPs as a potential client of theirs. Jamie, I guess before we move on to the next one, anything you wanted to add on this?
Well, look, it does go back to the couple of points. Why is it overall important? And Terry hit on the first one that I was going to mention. So thanks, Terry, for stealing my thunder to some degree. But it is around sales, right? Like, so if you think about and to be fair, I hadn't seen Jeanne's presentation, right? So I hadn't seen it. So we wanted her to talk about a certain topic, but I hadn't gone through and actually seen everything she talked about. And I thought it was quite interesting that there were the metrics angle to what she talked about as well, which is basically how many clients do you sign up and what does your churn look like? And obviously I had that in my presentation as well. And so those two sides of the coin have a massive part of what CX is all about. Like, let's talk about what Terry was talking about, signing up a new deal. Again, our platform's part of it, but it's not the only thing. It's the way in which you present. It's how you guide that customer through the sales process. One of the things about customer experience that doesn't get talked about, and I see it in all the forums, and no one ever really mentions it, is that your sales process, your sales experience is part of that first customer experience. So when someone calls up and they try and get through, and then that journey that you take them on to try and convert them as a customer is their first experience of your service. So wouldn't it stand to reason that your customer experience as it relates to sales is actually a really strong focal point of how you go to market, because that is intrinsically going to be the indicator to them of the post-sales service they're going to get from you. If you were efficient, if you were, reliable, oh, will you get me back that quote? Yes, and you do, and you're knowledgeable, and you present amazingly well, and you differentiate yourself with your purple cows, then all of that combines to the overall initial customer experience. And a sales experience is a customer experience. And so that probably doesn't get spoken about enough. And so the implication of why it's important is literally your ability to sign up clients. It's literally your ability. And it bothers me a little bit. It's why I sort of commercialized Invarosoft, is that the incumbent methodology for how the customer gets an experience from an MSP is from a mousepad and a sticker with your email and phone on it. So why is customer experience important? Here's another point on that. And obviously this is the type of stuff that I talk about at a vendor level, but it's so important. Think about these users that come in every day on their phones, and they've just been listening to music on Spotify, smashing Facebook and LinkedIn like most people do, and doing everything else on their apps. Then they sit at their desk and they're like, oh, I can't print. Like, oh, how do I get through to the IT guy? And then they ask, and it's like, oh, you got to find the sticker or the mouse pad. It's somewhere there, and you got to bludgeon an email and all that sort of stuff. That is why customer experience is so important. And it's not, forget our tool set, forget that. What I'm talking about has changed the game. Now, it's always the way it is with technology, is that the consumer technology leads the way for B2B technology. It is what it is, right? Look how long it took for Microsoft to do Teams and things like that. So, your customer experience on the sales side is important. How you differentiate your service and how you do that sales process is important. Then you got to look at the churn side. How you deliver your overall customer experience. What does onboarding look like? How do you look like when you deliver a project? And it was just like, when you're smaller, so it's like 5 of us, we'd get a job and it's like, who wants to do it, right? And then that was about it. It's like, go off and execute this 30 grand worth of stuff that we've just sold someone. No project management, no sort of project management map, nothing you give to the client. It was pretty much just go out there and do it. So it was loose once again, and you start to fine tune these things. So the implication of why it's so important, why is it so important? And what is the implication is churn. If you stuff up all these little 1%ers, have a real strong look at what you're doing out there in regards to when you lose that client. And Jeanne talked about it, about actually knowing why you lost the client. So one of the things I didn't mention, when we have that spreadsheet of churn, the new business you're signing up and the churn, below that, of the ones we've churned, we write the reason why. And obviously you don't want it to be your own fault, but if it is your own fault, why? And I guarantee it always comes down to something to do with your experience, your service. Oh, you just continually didn't set up new users properly. Oh, you just didn't keep us posted about this. And I chased you up. I asked so-and-so for a roadmap discussion, and you took 2 months to get back to me to have that meeting. That had nothing to do with your technical acumen. It came down to everything related to customer experience. And it is those 1%ers around communication that is so massive about customer experience. So it's a fascinating topic, doesn't get spoken about enough, but when you really map out all the different areas of your MSP and the different service delivery mechanisms you have, you do need to focus on it. It's why a company like Ralph's at their size, and I'm assuming Tony's as well, they have people focused on this. I'd almost love to hear from Ralph's colleague, because these are the sort of things that are deeply important to the customer. And I just think the implication is all around growth, factoring in sales ability and churn. So fascinating, but yeah, that's probably my thoughts on that, Matt.
Yeah, if I can just chime in real quick, just a bit, especially on the churn side. And this is another area, like I said, it doesn't really get a whole lot of focus, and that's around the offboarding process, right? That is part of the customer experience. How willing were you in supporting that, that client experience as they were leaving the organization, working with the other MSP or the winning MSP? or because in most cases it wasn't, as you just stated, it wasn't about a technical challenge or it was or a service, right? There's those are you have those acquisitions and those other things for organizations, right? Those things happen, but when they get there and they have service that's not so great, they will remember how they left. Right, and we talked about it very early on in the presentation about how those customers or those users at the user experience, they leave and go to another organization, and then they take you with them. That's the kind of response that we want to see at our organization. So every aspect of that customer experience, from the onboarding to the offboarding, is important. And as well as the CX team, we also have an offboarding team that, again, that values that experience, because we do understand it is part of the customer experience.
I agree with that, Ralph, as well. Just all of what you said, but certainly the last bit, we've always held our head high in terms of losing a customer. And so knowing what it's like to not get any information from the incumbent provider, which is an absolute pain in the butt, we develop I wouldn't say we have an offboarding team. We have our account managers that do it, but we basically create, like, you know, a manual, a list of documents to give to the IT provider going, there you go, there's all the info, there's the network diagrams, there's all the network information. And because we feel like, you know, in the future, that customer goes, well, we're very professional on exit. And I think that's really important, so that if they have an issue in the future, they always had a good experience from eNerds and they would consider coming back to you in the future. And we've definitely had that happen. Not a huge amount of time, but definitely enough to remember the 5 to 10 times where people have gone, oh my God, I went over there, the grass wasn't greener. You guys always were very professional, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure I see Terry laughing as well. Like, you have people come back, and it's fascinating. And I'll give you an example of an experience. What we were all talking about here is Kaseya. Not to sort of, you know, Kaseya is a great product. We use it, we support them, but the sales guy from Kaseya was an absolute machine. Like this, he was the guy, he wasn't just the sales guy, he was the guy running the region for Australia, and he was a beast. Like, he knew a lot about the MSP space. He was teaching us stuff, telling us to suck eggs a little bit based on all the research in the US, and we really appreciate it. We were like, wow, thanks so much for explaining all of that. That was amazing. And we were in like Flynn with Kaseya. And when we were doing the review, one of the guys said, look, Kaseya is a bit of a beast. Like, you know, it's a tough product to just configure and get out the door and all that sort of jazz. But this guy was so amazing that we did it. And the onboarding experience of Kaseya wasn't as great as the sales experience. It was kind of like chalk and cheese. And it was, the feeling that we had was a little bit deflated, to be honest. Like, we were like, oh my God, what have we got ourselves into? Like, he basically put up this dream and we were all in on that. And because once he was gone, and it was left to the team. So you really do have to be careful, because if you have a chalk and cheese experience, it's like, it's awful as the customer to experience that.
Well, I will stay away from commenting on my former employer.
Yeah.
So kind of moving to the next question, and I guess kind of asking everybody to put their futurist hats on. And I think you can answer this in a couple different ways. I mean, obviously you can talk about what you believe your own MSP modern experience is going to look like around customer experience in 2022, but also maybe the industry and you know, realizing like everybody has different levels of maturity as an MSP. So maybe some internal thoughts on it or external of where you see the industry going in general. And Tony, will kick things off with you.
Yeah, so we want to be looking at ways in which we are communicating with our customers quicker, and I mean that from what Jamie was saying in terms of having that app-based feature and a way to be able to get in front of the customer immediately, you know, without any kind of need for them to go off and search for your emails. I think from our perspective, it raises the game in our service level and communication level to the customer that ultimately is going to improve the customer experience. It gives us the ability to be able to gain feedback as well, and you know, modify our processes and how we engage with the customers based on the feedback we get. in a lot more of a sort of quicker way. We don't have to wait to send out surveys. We've got instant feedback from various different channels. And that's really how we're going to wrap our customer experience services over the coming year or two. Learn from those mistakes and move forward.
Excellent. And Terry, how about yourself?
Oh, what does it look like in 2022? I would think that the end user is going to need to have something that, number one, gives them a super easy way to enter support requests in a guided way, so they don't have to know technical terms and things like that. It should have a solid knowledge base with self-support options. That's a huge thing that saves them time, obviously. They should have a chat application, of course. They should have relevant training material that coincides with the software that they actually use. Okay. And right now, and to be honest, we've tried a few, right? And the reason we chose Invarosoft, I think, where they do it right is some of the others, I guess, I want to say felt like SharePoint, because but they kind of did. It almost was like I made it in SharePoint. You know what I mean? It didn't have that, that dedicated app feeling, I guess. And Invarosoft felt like it was designed from the ground up for this. I mean, that's the feeling we got anyway. So it was a lot more intuitive, easier to use, much easier to get up and running. So yeah.
No, we appreciate that response. And Ralph, I'll kick it over to you as well.
All right, the modern customer experience, right? Just take into account what the workforce looks like. Workforce at the organizations, they want to know what does it look like for me to be able to get support when I'm having trouble or challenges getting through the day, right? When my production environment is experiencing challenges, how do I get that support, right? So what does that delivery method look like for us, right? So for me, it's all of that kind of boils down to the delivery team, right? And for me, it's the 3 C's, right, that I'm building around my organization now. And we're focusing on impacting this going into 2022 to impact what that customer experience is like. And the first one is the client focus. Everybody needs to be focused on the client. What we do, how we do it is focused on the client. What our managers are doing, managers are focusing on supporting our leads and our consultants, right? Our tier 1 guys are focused on supporting the customers or the clients, right? We're leveraging all of our internal tools to communicate effectively and those things, but everybody's focused on that client experience. The second C is communication, right? We have internal communications as well as client communications. The ability to pick up the phone, leverage the Invarosoft app to send communications out quickly to get an approval for an access request. And the tools to be able to do that, and that communication piece driving down our times, right? Improving that customer experience. And the next is consistency, and I touched on this at the beginning, is trying to ensure that we are building that consistency across the organization, regardless of what part of the organization you're working in, right? That service excellence piece has to be part of that delivery method that you're delivering. And then the last piece, right? We have those silos that Jeanne kind of spoke to earlier, right? And we have barriers across the organization that do exist. And once we realize that we have things that we can influence and have things that we can impact, then that helps us break down what those barriers look like, and then we continue to move in the same direction, not only as a team but as an organization, right? Let's see, building relationships, getting and developing and building out a proactive organization is probably one of the biggest things I think is going to improve the customer or client experience, especially in 2022 for us. We don't have the ability today to be proactive, but we're getting there. We're focused on driving and putting solutions in place that allow us to be proactive, right? We're telling our clients, hey, we're going to do all these things in your environment, right? And we're going to be taking a look at it. But today we're far more reactive than we are proactive. And I want to be able to change that dynamic, and if not 100%, at least let's give it an effort to at least get it to about 20 or 25%, which is better than where we are today. And that's what it looks like next year. And we also want to improve our ability to gain value with feedback from our customers, improving our service delivery, ensuring that we are giving the customers what we want. So.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. And Jamie, before we get into the final question, any of your thoughts on the modern experience in 2022?
Well, obviously, being a vendor in this space, there's some comments I've got there. But before I get into just painting the picture on what I think is going to happen, and we get to observe what all of our partners are doing and what the industry is doing, of course. So it's been fascinating to see that. It's one of the things that I think around customer experience is, and Ralph's talking about having a team that owns it. And as he was talking, I was thinking, well, what do small MSPs do? Like, how do they handle that in the sense that who's owning it? Obviously the CEO owns it, but then who else can own that? And one of the things that doesn't get talked about enough, and we've bludgeoned our way to figure this out, and you kind of need to as you scale and get bigger, is this concept of account management in the MSP space. So what we realized was that if you said, so what I'm talking about is the need to have someone as an account manager, right? And this modern customer experience, not specifically, but I do want to make this point because it is what a customer experience should look like in 2022 and beyond for MSPs, in the sense that in normal industries, an account manager is a salesperson, straight up. If you put an ad up on the internet and you say account manager, that'll be a sales role, full on. Like the guy that I hired for our sales team, Sam, earlier on, he would describe himself as doing account management, right? Because he was flogging printers and doing all that sort of stuff. But I would challenge the industry to say that the future of what it really looks like for customer experience is having an account manager, which is, we have 3 of them now, that is sole purpose for being is to stop churn and to ensure and ensure the customer is getting an excellent service and hold the business accountable to deliver an excellent service in that sense. So there's sort of the one head to chop of that customer experience. And there needs to be more focus on that in 2022 and beyond, because they are the glue, that role and that person that manages that role, they're the glue that holds it all together. They're the person that will field all of that angst a little bit around, well, where's that engineer? He hasn't come on site yet. Oh, you could have someone helping with that. Someone helping, where's that project? I hadn't heard back from this. That glue in the middle. And so, that as a business model needs to be thought about, even when you're small, is having someone in a more, maybe even if they're not a full-on account manager, a client services coordinator role that's purely there just to keep it all together. Man, you can really stop churn big time by having someone accountable in that space. But what does it look like from a technical perspective in the future? Well, obviously with Invarosoft, that's where we literally, and just so you know, in our team and the other companies in our space, we're all spending a lot of time and effort to try. And think about these developers and the people spending the time. We're listening to the market. We're trying to really develop technology that will deliver a modern experience. So what does it look like? For me, it's a living, breathing experience. It's what Tony's talked about, Terry and Ralph, from a technology perspective around communication. So where we're going with the tool is when you log a ticket, the next iteration we'll be releasing next year, early next year, will be the push ticket updates. So when you do an update in your PSA, the user gets a little push notification saying that it's updated, all right? So that they're getting this kind of instant like visual moving experience of what's actually going on. So it's going to be around a tighter integration with some of the PSA tools that are out there, but then leveraging some of the smart, like the push technology that you've been hearing about to do that. And at the heart of all of this is taking away the darkness of that customer. So we want to keep iterating the product. We're going to be doing, new mobile apps and making that even better in that regard. But what you really want in terms of a modern customer experience is taking away the darkness from the customer and giving them some sort of one pane of glass. And so we will keep iterating and improving our client portal and some of this other technology we're building there. But it's about them feeling like, wow, there's this digital experience. So for example, we brought out earlier this year, training bots. So imagine when you load out an agent, and then that new customer gets this little welcome message that then links off to a page that then plays videos. That's amazing. That's a wow factor experience for that user. They're like, oh, wow, like, that's cool. Because they don't get anything at the moment. They get an odd email, largely, from their main contact saying, oh, we've changed IT providers. There's the new email and phone. And that's it. So you want to have this living, breathing experience. What does the future look like? Well, part of our dream is to transition. We're going to be adding web chat. We're going to be adding, and where we want to go with it, and where I feel like the technology needs to go, is chat bots. Now that's already saturated in the, like, out in the wider sort of market. But what chatbots enable you to do is just get those answers done even faster. Oh, what was the issue? Like, maybe help them log a ticket, maybe escalate a ticket. So it's probably not going to do such amazing stuff at the start, but the future after that of just, you know, triaging a ticket is to then try and help them solve an issue. Oh, you need someone. Now, Electric tried to do that. They've backed off a bit because obviously it's a little harder than they thought to do that, but that is where the future is. Now, some MSPs would be saying to themselves, no, but my MSP experience is very much around relationship, and I want that human touch, and I want to have this kind of, you know, that's what sets me apart. I will challenge your thinking on that. I've been literally doing the MSP game since I was 22 years old. And I know that users just want, yes, they want all of that. And we have a customer experience, you know, conference, we're talking about that. But what they really want is, because they'll be fighting the bots thing. So what I'm trying to say here is that they'll say, no, I'll never do bots because that's too digital and I want to have this personal experience. Well, the point is that a customer, if you really ask them, they want fast and accurate support. If I'm a lawyer and I'm sitting there and I can't print, and I know that I could quickly go somewhere and figure out that solution. Like, they don't actually want to solve it themselves, but if I could go somewhere and someone else, whether it be a bot or whatever, can just give me the answer so I can move on and solve and get on with my day, I'm as happy as Larry. I'm as happy. Do not forget that, people listening to this. Yes, you need to be an awesome customer experience. Yes, you need to be personal. Yes, it needs to be in person, but there are just times where people want to get an answer and get on with their lives. All right. So that's where I feel like the industry is going to go, is it's taking some of the consumer stuff that you'll experience. Like, think about when you use Uber Eats. Have you ever ordered Uber Eats and then they've not delivered like something? I don't know if it's happened to you, Matt, where, you know, the like you've ordered a bunch of stuff and then like one key thing just doesn't turn up. And then
it's mostly been with DoorDash, but DoorDash. It's gotten to the point where now I use DoorDash, but I actually go pick it up myself because I can't deal with how long it takes them, and they mess up the order half the time.
Well, the cool thing with Uber Eats is, if you sit there and go and just think about customer experience, the dude, like, you order a chicken, salad, and chips, whatever, chips for the healthy bar, and then the bloody salad doesn't turn up. And you sit there going, well, that's annoying. So I don't have my salad, but I want a refund because I kind of spent a lot on the salad. You can literally just in the app go bang, 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 solve that problem. And they'll literally just instantly go, yeah, I've refunded it, whatever. Now, I guarantee Uber Eats went, you know what? We're not going to fight that. A lot of businesses will fight refunds, won't they? How many times do you get a refund that instantly, where you literally click a button and within about a minute you get a message back saying, yep, we've refunded you. Sorry for that experience. That is customer experience 101. And that's what we want to be building in that experience with Invarosoft, certainly. So and I'll finish on this note, is, for example, with our CSAT functionality that's coming out soon, when we do the push ticket updates, imagine when that ticket's closed and you can optionally configure how often you want this to pop up, but that user then gets a push notification popping up with the smiley faces straight away going, wow, the ticket's closed, that's fantastic, can you rate us and give us a comment? Boom, straight away from there. Like, that's the type of thing that I think is going to start happening, and obviously we're going to start building. So anyway, I'll stop my diatribe on that one.
Yeah. So I think we have one final topic area, and then I know we have a couple questions, so we'll probably make this one a little shorter so we have time for a little bit of the Q&A there. Around growth in 2022, and, you know, specifically around what results have you seen sales wise, focusing on that customer experience, that innovation, that, what Terry talked about, that differentiation. And so maybe Terry, I'll kick it back to you. And I know you touched upon it, but obviously you have seen results because it's differentiated. You spoke a little bit about that earlier.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's been a great sales tool for us. To be honest, we've only been using it a short time. So as far as any metrics or anything, it's kind of hard. But I could tell you, sales wise, it's one of the things that clients really seem most excited about when we show them, if that makes sense. Especially since we tailor their portal with the things that they actually need and use. So our focus now with it is kind of ramping up the self-help section, which is unique because that directly translates into fewer support requests, which is an awesome thing.
Yep. And Tony, how about on your end?
So we've seen about, well, there's a 48% growth in turnover since we've been using various tools, not one of which being the Invarosoft product, and we've got about a 30% further growth in confirmed orders for the rest of our financial year. It's been the large portion of that growth in the turnover has been really focused on, or having as a result of focusing on an excellent customer service experience right from the get-go. And Jamie mentioned earlier about it starts at the sales cycle, and having that confidence and experience that when you're talking to somebody, they get that feeling from you that you really know what you're talking about. And when they're talking about their problems, you really understand their issues and what you need to do to fix them. And that's been a real sort of key driver over the past year or so's worth of sales, where we've really focused on what the customer's journey is all about rather than necessarily what we want to sell. And the figures sort of speak for themselves.
Excellent. And Ralph? I think you're on mute, Ralph.
Yeah, I actually clicked on the other screen, sorry. Results focusing on CX innovation. Well, financial growth is probably the first result of that, but customer retention, right, is one of the biggest benefits of having a CX in innovation, right? You're continuing to provide services and solutions that our customers and our clients need. But I think one of the biggest things that it does is it helps you validate or provide proof of value, right? This is an investment for your customers and your clients, right? To invest in their technology, invest in that support for the organization. So that's probably the biggest thing for me as far as what that overall investment is. It's that proof of value that you're providing those services to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know, Jamie, we're running a little low on time, and we've got a couple Q&A. Did you want to chime in on this topic or go to the Q&A?
I'll quickly answer it. And obviously, the fact of the matter is, I think it's really hard to sign up, get leads, like just having them flying through the door in that sense. I'm sure a lot of you listening would be like, yeah, that's fair enough. It's like you're not getting 10 new business support plan leads every month. Like, we've never done it. We've always got between 0 and 3. And I think sales wise, it's, again, I talked about it before, but I'll reiterate it again, just so we remind, because there's a lot of information today, is that focusing on conversion is everything. If you are operating in an environment where there are actually a small amount of qualified leads genuinely looking to swap IT providers, then you better be focused on conversion. And the way to do that is through, that support, innovating your support proposal, like innovating it so that you go, should I say this first or that next, or this one? Should I start with the why, the how, or how should I do this? What about showing this? Like, for example, we have a page in our support proposal that says what engagement looks like. So what I realized is that you actually want to get the buyer into the mindset of having already bought from you. So having a page in the proposal about what we're going to do once they sign up and all the process we're going to go through, we then play them a cartoon video, which we've been doing for 11 years. If you go to invarosoft.com/video, you'll see what I'm talking about. And we have this because we say, okay, and then when we onboard, we'll come out and see you. But for those staff that can't, we play this cartoon video. It's also part of our training bots. And it basically just says, hey, this is us, and these are our hours of operation, these are the services. All of that stuff is how you improve conversion, because they walk away from the meeting going, far out, that was pretty amazing, right? So sales wise, it's helped us get very high conversion. We are at 47%, and it means that in a low lead environment, we're managed to scale. Like, how many MSPs have you met that have not grown from acquisition, have got anywhere near 10 million? How many? Like, most that you will meet have bolted themselves together and got past that mark. So I haven't met many. I speak to hundreds. And I think if I sort of was to examine why is that, it is because we focused on innovation of our support proposal, innovation around customer experience, and we made it clear to focus on it. So I think that's probably the key point. Focus on this sort of stuff. You will improve conversion. And if you improve conversion, I mean, think about it this way. If you went from a conversion of 20% to 40%, you've literally doubled up the speed of what you're going to sign up. Still only 40%, but you may only be at 20% at the moment. And why is that? It's because someone like eNodes comes in with the gift of the gab, but with a great sales presentation, and blows you out of the water. Blows you out of the water, like straight up. We get the feedback all the time. Even the way you do your pricing and packaging and making that very clear and easy to understand is fascinating. And I will reiterate this again, because I touched on it briefly, and not to labor on it, but I do want the market, I want you all to know this. That problem that I talked about of sales compression is very real. Now, I'll tell you a story just in 1 minute, and you tell me whether or not this sounds like you. You go out, you present this enormous report of, let's say you're doing a network audit and you're now presenting the results, whether it be to a new customer opportunity or whether it's to an existing customer. You go out and you present using some of these other tools. I don't care whether you use our tool or not. I just want to make this point clear. You do a long-winded audit result, this huge thing explaining all the things you found out about their environment. And that's kind of like 90% of the time that you spend of your presentation. Then you spend about 10% of the time actually trying to get them to make a buying decision around it, because of the way that you're presenting, because you're basically just giving them budget estimates. And from there, the customer turns and says to you, okay, all right, I get it. Yep, you've given me all right, well, I mean, which ones do you recommend? Are you going to do a quote? And then you go away and go, no, I recommend these sort of things. This is probably what we can do. So how about I go away and do a quote, and I'll come back to you and we'll go through it. Oh, sure. Great. So now you've stretched out that presentation of your recommendations from 1 meeting to 2 meetings. And then that interest level has waned of that person, and you're struggling to get them back on the phone. How many times have you presented to a customer all of that, and then there's just been darkness, you've been ghosted? That is an example of focusing on CX and innovation around how you present recommendations to a customer. And I strongly recommend that using a good, better, best approach is the way to do it. Get them to make a buying decision in the process of you presenting those recommendations. And then you're presenting a quote for sign off rather than a quote for a discussion. So that's an example of results we've seen, even on the procurement side, on focusing on innovation around how we literally just lay out the information to the customer and guide them through that decision-making process. So not all innovation has to be software. It can be a process. And I think that's quite interesting. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, so now transitioning, there's a couple, we're a little bit on time, but I think we got time for a couple of the questions from the audience. I don't think we need to go to every person on the panel to respond. If somebody on the panel wants to respond, please chime in, and Jamie, otherwise I guess you can answer them the question. Todd's asked, how do you know how much, this is a tough question, how do you know how much is too much communication with a client, i.e. push notifications, broadcast? I mean, it is certainly something that everybody has to balance. I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on this topic.
Well, I'd like to probably chime into that one. And I think it's a balance. You know, one thing we've done very recently at some point this year was we've reduced the total number of communications because every time we touch the ticket with an update, with the save, with the change, I mean, they got a notification, right? And it was overkill. And one of the things that we identified, especially through our CX team, right, as well as service delivery side, and that customer experience was, hey, this is impactful. Yes, we want to get the information, but we want to make sure we're giving them the right information, right? They don't need to know every time we make an update on the ticket or we change the status of the ticket from this to this, right? They want to know when things have changed, when things are moving forward. So it's identifying exactly what you want that customer experience to be like, what you want that communication cycle to be like, and what's important for you all on that service delivery aspect of communication with the client. Because you sound like you want to use, or you want to have a blended format of, hey, I want to reach out, you know, using push notifications and things like that, right? How disruptive do you think that's going to be? And then weighing in when you're going to be leveraging that as a tool versus communication directly from the ticket, right? So it's all those kinds of things. You're just kind of pulling it all together. So one, you're using and leveraging it as a tool, and the other you're using and leveraging as part of the communication. Hopefully that helps a bit.
Absolutely. We've got Mark. I know Mark. Good to see you, sir. He said, hi, Jamie. Are you saying to bring your good, better, best proposal to the discovery call with pricing? That's not the cart before the horse?
Well, yes, absolutely. I mean, you couldn't present recommendations without doing the audit. But I will say this. So no, what I was saying before was when you've done an audit and they know you're coming back to them with recommendations, that's where you want to present good, better, best to them at that point. And so that you can just get them to make a buying decision matching their budget and moving on from there. But one thing I will say though, is that in our support proposals, so I'm not saying what you're saying, like I am saying you do your audit and then you present and that's how you do it, as opposed to just being vague around what the options are for them to purchase. But what we do in our support proposals is we have a section about that, about our solution builder approach. So because the customer wants to know this, right? They want to know, okay, fine, you're going to be our new support provider. Okay, you're going to come in and manage us. Great. So you'll talk a lot about support, but what are you going to do around the recommendation side of things? Like you're going to come and do an audit. So we have a page in there where we show them the solution builder. This is in the new business proposal. When you do that, it immediately gives them peace of mind. I know this because they've told us. After, when you win a deal, they'll tell you why and all this sort of jazz, is that it gave them peace of mind that they knew what they were going to get from us post being choosing us as the vendor, and then what it would look like when we come back with recommendations. Because we make a big point about it. And I actually think it's a differentiated point is to talk about the fact we'll come back, we'll give you options, we'll guide you through this process. We call it Solution Builder. And this is how we'll make sure that we match your budget with your goals, and we can plan out your spend over a period of time so it's aligned to what you want to do. The customer hears all of that, they see the good, better, best table in the proposal, and they go, well, yeah, that just makes sense. As opposed to most MSPs that will never talk about what that would look like post, purchasing MSP services.
Got it. Well, yeah, we'll try to squeeze these last two. Do you have key account management for your top accounts? How do you achieve this without alienating your other clients? Anybody have some? Ralph, it looks like you took yourself off mute.
He's like,
as soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, I got a little something for that. And that's our CX team, right? I mean, that's exactly what they do. So those key or high touch clients, right? High touch clients. We have high touch clients and kind of low touch clients, right? The high touch clients, we deliver to those usually, they have a higher MRR spend, right? So they value IT. But generally just, hey, this is how we interact with those guys. But for the key account management piece, we have that CX team in place that engages with those guys on a more regular cadence. Whereas the other clients, it's probably more low touch, that a couple times a year versus you're engaging with the other ones probably quarterly, if not more often. So we certainly don't use those terms outside of internal, just so you know.
What is their role title out of interest, Ralph? Like what do they say their role is to the customer?
Customer experience.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all customer experience, right? Hold on one second. I think it's the customer success analyst.
Got it.
I think it's the role title.
Australia's a bit backwards, and we tried using that term and nobody got it. So we went back to account management because I didn't understand what we were talking about. I think we went a wee bit extreme there, but yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at ID Agent, that's what we call them, customer success managers. But I will say, like, I don't think having key account management on certain accounts has to be at the expense of the other clients. I think it's, if you're delivering—
That is correct.
If you're delivering really good service to all your clients, but you're just giving, it's like it's just white glove at the highest level. And so it's not necessarily at the expense. It's just really, it's more like a beyond service that you're doing for those key accounts.
It's that value add, right? It's that value add, right? So absolutely.
Yeah. And then the final question from Todd: what about the introduction of, and this might be for you, Jamie, what about the introduction of video into the support experience through the app for more personalization?
Yeah, it's a good point. So we will be looking at doing where you're logging a ticket, you can choose to attach or take a screen capture, kind of like snag it, or we want to add the ability to be able to record a quick video and attach that as well. So we will be doing that. Some other technology out there will like pre-record everything the user's doing. I just will never do that. I just feel like that's a massive security risk of automatically recording, you know, what's on that screen. Who knows what's on that screen? There could be, you know, all sorts of data there, and that sort of scares me. But certainly recording, or I don't know if Todd's meaning literally clicking a button and being able to video call with someone. Potentially that could be interesting in the sense of just wanting to have a video call. But you know, the interesting thing about all of this technology, and I invite everybody, the partners that are on this and elsewhere, with any B2B product, the customer feedback is what really shapes the design. I'm sure you saw that with ID Agent, Matt, to some degree. And there's no different for us. So a lot of the technology we've put in place is based off feedback, and then all we do is collate that feedback as the most, you know, who said it the most, and we just go, well, we've got to starting at the top of the list and moving our way down. So
absolutely. So that concludes the panel portion of today. Gentlemen, Tony, Terry, Ralph, we certainly appreciate you joining. I'm sure Jamie has some final thoughts on just thanking you guys for being on this summit.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, Tony, it's late for you, mate, so I really do appreciate it. It was great to hear a Pommy accent, and we get a bit of diversity there. Hopefully you could understand what I was saying with my Australian / I am actually from New Zealand, so I'm a Kiwi, but the Australians killed my accent. So hopefully that was nice to hear a spread of accents around the world. And I do appreciate you guys for spending the time today. It's a new topic that doesn't get spoken about a lot, and it was really interesting to hear your insights, and especially some of the tactical things that you're doing internally around this topic. So there will be something coming your way to say thanks for this. So watch out for that. But other than that, we do appreciate your time and wish you well for the rest of your evening. And hopefully we'll obviously speak soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am going to duck out because I've got some dinner waiting for me at 9 o'clock, guys. So thanks very much, Jamie. And yeah, all the best to everybody. Okay.
Thanks. And yeah, so everybody you on the panel can take themselves off video. We would love for you to stick around, obviously, to the conclusion of the event. And we just have a couple more components here. I think Jamie's going to be coming back on to go over who the Invarosoft Partner Award, and then we'll just do some final thoughts and conclude the summit.
Excellent. So this will be quick. So we just thought we'd tie in our Partner of the Year award for Invarosoft as part of the proceedings. So it's one award, and we basically internally selecting a partner that has really embraced the customer experience belief, someone that has done an absolute amazing job of implementation and deployment in that sense, someone that's given us a lot of feedback. So we looked at that side of things, like what have they been proactive in terms of really helping us shape what we're doing, and more specifically giving us support when we are releasing new functionality and features, being able to get that feedback quickly and help us move. It's underestimated how much that can help us ship things faster if we can get that feedback a lot quicker. So who is the winner of this year's Invarosoft Partner of the Year 2021? I'm pleased to say it is Moise Tharani from Clever IT. Thank you so much for your support over this past year and a bit that we've been working. As you can see there, Moise has done such a great job of really including the technology, obviously in his website, as you see there, but he's really gone all in and used that as part of his go-to-market. And we've also been able to save him a little bit of money by dropping some of the other tools he was using as well, which is fantastic. So Moise, thank you so much for all that effort and time. You're just an absolute champion at giving us feedback. He literally does it within a day. It's ridiculous. So it's very much appreciated. And so in thank you for that, that's Ayers Rock, by the way, if you didn't know. There's a bit of Australiana. If you ever come to Australia, you've got to check it out. What he's going to get is a $500 Amazon voucher. He's going to get a nice trophy to put on the mantelpiece. And also, we are going to send you an Aussie care pack, mate. We know that you've been longing for some Aussie stuff, and there may or may not be a whole lot of Tim Tams in there as well. If you haven't heard of Tim Tams, check them out. They're one of the best biscuits in the world. Quite dangerous, but so enjoy. So thank you so much again, Moise, for that, and thank you for everybody for attending today's summit. I hope that you got the gold nuggets that you were looking for, and really appreciative of the time and effort you've taken out of your day. So I'll hand it back to Matt to conclude the event.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, this was such an interesting experience, and I got excited when Jimmy reached out to me because, again, there's been no customer experience event. I was writing down some notes as we were all talking today, and, again, some of the things that just stuck out to me, that spotlight is on customer experience. COVID did change a lot around the customer experience. People don't have the patience anymore for bad customer experiences. They just don't, and it's really evolved. I think that differentiation, that is something I really was I think just stood out so much. I legitimately talked to thousands of MSPs over the last couple of years being on the road, and that's one of the number one challenges MSPs have. I know I don't run an MSP, but I know from speaking with them, they're always, that's how do I make myself different when we have a bunch of the same services? Well, customer experience, you don't have that type of, and so it really is kind of like, now is the time to jump in that two-sided component of it, where it's not just, are you making it a better experience for your customer, you're saving your time, and time is money for your business. Jamie, I think there's also, if I'm correct, if they joined here today and they're not a current customer of Invarosoft, and I know you're not trying to do any plugs, I'm going to do one vendor plug for you. There is an opportunity, some type of deal for joining us today, correct?
Correct. So if you just go to invarosoft.com/growth, you can check out a deal there. Happy to talk to you, obviously, about what we're doing and in general, but really the main focus of this event was to just spark the debate. Let's keep talking about it, get that mind shift going, and whichever way you go around customer experience, do something. Don't do nothing. You've got to absolutely, really focus on this to keep your business moving forward. So as I said before, I really appreciate those that have stayed on and listened, and I'm sure you'll get a gold nugget or two. And for those that weren't able to come today, there are a couple that wanted to join. We'll obviously send out the recording so you can watch that again and take down some of those notes.
Absolutely. And I put both mine and Jamie's LinkedIn link, our profile. So if you want to connect with us there, you can reach out to us on there as well. Thanks again, Jamie, for putting on such a great event and the first of its kind. Not many people can say that.
Thanks, thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it. And thank you for Jody as well, who's the elusive Invarosoft button there that's really helped pull this together. So thank you, Terry, Ralph, and Tony, once again. Well done, boys. And that's it from me. Over and out.